And Christina, you'll be the one to click start webinar?
Yes.
Okay.
YouTube is still buffering. Okay, you're live, Chair Lopez, Lucy.
Thank you. Meeting of the Parks and Community Service Commission will now come to order for our March 10th, 2021 meeting. And I believe that I will have the secretary read the appropriate items that she needs to read.
Thank you. The procedures adopted for this meeting meet or exceed standards set forth in Governor Gavin Newsom's Order N-29-20, which allows public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. At this time, it would be appropriate to conduct roll call and afterwards to confirm certain matters for the record. Commissioner Dorlick. You're muted.
Yeah, there we go. Present.
Commissioner Keniston Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Birnbaum.
Present.
Commissioner Roberts.
Present.
Student Commissioner Ramesh.
Present.
Vice Chair Oslin.
Here.
Chair Lopez.
Present.
Thank you. And now I would like to verify that all members of the committee can hear me well. All members of the committee have been able to hear all previous speakers, including the roll call. Each committee member believes, based on facial or voice recognition or otherwise, that all persons representing themselves to be a committee member are in fact committee members. If all three statements are true, please indicate by raising your hand. Heidi, please raise your hand. Thank you. And finally, as a reminder, any votes taken during this meeting must be taken by roll call. Thank you.
Item 2. Christy, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 4 is spatial items, and I didn't do that. Didn't turn off my thing. Sorry, everyone, turn off your phones. Spatial items and announcements, and I believe 4.1 is the swearing in of our new Parks and Community Service Commission, Heidi, and I believe, Christina, you will do the swearing in.
Yes. Good evening. It is my pleasure to administer the oath of office to our newly appointed Parks and Community Services Commissioner. So Heidi, if you could please, I know Zoom, it's not the same as it was in person, so if you could please raise your right hand, and then I will go ahead and repeat after me throughout the oath. So I, please state your name.
I, Heidi Ellicott-Pesic,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
on which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi, and welcome. We welcome you to our commission, and hopefully that you will enjoy working with us all. So we're glad that you're aboard. So thank you. 4.2 is the temporary employee of the month. And I believe that will be presented by Kevin Boggs. Kevin?
Yes, thank you, commissioners. I'm happy to be here tonight to honor Samuel Reddig as the Parks and Community Services, Employee of the Month for February 2021. Sam has grown up at the Santa Maria Olympic Pool. He started coming back in 2012 and has been a constant fixture ever since. Sam started working for the city of Santa Maria in May of 2015, and he currently serves as a lifeguard 2 in the aquatics division. Sam has been one of the key staff members helping to support the city's lap swim program, ensuring the city is able to continue to offer an expanded program to meet the needs of the community. His dedication on the guard stand, keeping swimmers safe in the water, and his customer service skills on the pool deck makes Sam a fantastic role model for our younger lifeguards. As a veteran lifeguard, Sam takes the initiative to help those shift lead. Depending on the day or the shift, it could be as simple as checking pool chemicals, making announcements, or as involved as moving backstroke flags, which is surprisingly difficult. His knowledge and experience at the pool has given his supervisors peace of mind, knowing that the swimmers are in good hands. Sam is currently attending Diablo Valley College, where he is on the water polo team, and he's working to transfer to a 4-year college. We're fortunate to have Sam along for his calm demeanor and his positive attitude. He'll be working throughout summer, so we're really happy about that. The Parks and Community Services Department would like to take this opportunity to thank Samuel for his dedicated contributions to the department and to the city of Santa Maria. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Sam, for all that you do and keeping our swimmers nice and safe at the pools, and at all time keeping everyone safe around you also. But good luck to you on your water polo team at school. I'm sure that you enjoy that, since you are probably, very good at that since you're a lifeguard, I would think. And we just thank you for all your service that you've given San Ramon, and we're very appreciative of it. And we just wish you the best of luck for all your futures endeavors. So if you would like to say a few words, please do so.
First off, thank you, Kevin, for the introduction. That was very nice to hear. Thank you to the whole Parks Department committee and whoever voted me to receive this award. It's definitely nice to be recognized. Like Kevin said, I've been at the pool for a while. Like earlier today, I was just at water polo practice before this. I love being around the pool. It's a great place to be. A lot of our lap swimmers right now are super thankful that we're open. They tell me that all the time, like, thanks for being here. Usually people wouldn't say that all the time, and I hear it all the time, so that's been nice. And like earlier today, it was hailing during work, and I thought that was cool. I've never lifeguard during hail, so even though I've been lifeguarding a while, new things still happen, and it's a great job. And for someone like me who likes to be swimming and playing polo, it's fun. So thank you to everybody. Thanks, Kevin. And that's all.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to say thank you or say a few words for Sam? Again, we thank you and good luck. So keep up the good work. All right, I believe we have some special announcements this evening, and I believe, Kathy, you're going to give us a few.
Yes, I always have a few things I like to say. And so I'm hoping, let's see if you can see this, if I get myself backgrounded enough on it. Our summer activity guide, there it is. Hopefully you're seeing it in your mailbox and it's coming out. So we're really excited that we're able to offer a full complement of summer programs this year. All of the ones that you'll see in there can be adapted to meet the county health guidelines. So if it hasn't gotten to your mailbox yet, when it does, make sure to take a look at it, because there's a lot of fun planned. Also, I think our teen council screening committee, thank you. As I understand, that's been completed, and we are now moving on to the teen council interviews on March 29th, 30th, and April 1st. Thank you, Don, Julie, and Will. And I think the emails are headed out to the teen council applicants at the beginning of next week, so they'll get their interview time slots. So that process is moving along. Thank you again, all of you, because it takes the full commission to get this one done. Wanted to give you a heads up that we do have our first Parks Make Life Better cleanup day planned in an entire year. We haven't had these, but we are moving ahead with it, and it's going to be at Crow Canyon Gardens on March 20th. So if you're interested, you can sign up through the City Lights website, or you can swing by and just take a peek at what's going on. And as I mentioned, Crow Canyon Gardens, just as a quick mini update, I think most of you are aware the City Council Policy Committee did reconsider their recommendation number 3 at their policy committee meeting, asked staff to investigate a few options in regards to a national monument and a smaller footprint of a building, what that would cost. Staff's doing that research, and that'll be continued to a future policy committee meeting. Probably won't be next month. This will take a couple months for which to get this information together, but I will keep you all posted on when that is, as I know you will be very interested in that meeting. And then finally, National Library Week is April 4th to April 10th. We won't meet before then, but there will be a presentation at the City Council meeting at the end of March, and there's lots of special and exciting things going on at the library. So just encourage you to, I think that you'll be able to visit or stop by, or at least check out the presentation that the librarian will do at the March 23rd meeting about National Library Week. That's it.
Thank you. Just one thing, what time does the Crow Canyon Gardens, start?
I believe that's 9 a.m., but I can confirm that and get that out to you all.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, now we will go to public comment or written communication. So at this time, those that are watching us now are encouraged to address the Parks and Community Service Commission on any item not already included in tonight's agenda. Members of the public who are participating via Zoom will have the opportunity to make comments to the Parks and Community Service Commission live through Zoom application. Comments should not exceed 3 minutes. Comments from the public under public comment may also be submitted by email to ctoman@sanramon.ca.gov. No commission actions can be taken on this meeting on issues raised during public comment, whether submitted by email or on Zoom. And if written comment, emails must be submitted to the Park and Community Service Department prior to the commencement of this meeting. Reading of the public comment emails into the record by the recording secretary will be limited in duration to 3 minutes each. Madam Secretary, do we have public comment at this time? I will open it up for comment. Public comment is now open.
Public comment, but I would like to say, if you would like to comment, please click the raise your hand button or the *9 on your telephone to request to speak. When it is your turn, you will be unmuted and your comments will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes. Afterwards, your allotted time will return. You will return to being muted. I do not see any hands being raised.
Okay, we will close the public comment, public comments. So then we will go on to number 6, approval of minutes. Now I do have something there before we have a motion to approve them, because as I noticed in the minutes, that under number 8, commission business, that I moved that we accept the Library Advisory Committee. I know I asked for a motion, but as a chair, I cannot make the motion. So I cannot remember who volunteered to do the motion, because I know that it was seconded and all, but does anyone remember if they made that motion? It should be not my name. I didn't make it.
I might have made it.
Okay,
Yeah,
We
you
can go
book
back and
me-
check the video and we'll correct it.
would you
Yeah.
correct that, please? Yeah.
You can book me for that one.
Okay. And I will check that.
Okay, and if there are any other corrections, then I would need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved with possible corrected addendum.
Second.
All right. I believe our secretary will take roll call.
Yes, Commissioner Dorlick,
Yes.
Commissioner Keniston Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Birnbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts. You're muted.
Sorry, aye.
Commissioner Ellicott,
Abstain.
Vice Chair Oslin,
Aye.
Chair Lopez Lucy.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes then the minutes. Then I do not see anything that we have on the consent calendar at this time. So we will go on to number 8, commission business. And I believe that will be presented by Keith, our program manager. Keith?
And yes, I do have a couple of quick comments before Keith jumps in there. So this is a big and exciting topic for the commission to discuss. I'm going to ask you all to try and take a 50,000 foot view of the Prop 68 item. In other words, take the very big picture. We've got all 7 projects that you're going to hear about tonight are good projects. They all have pros and cons. And what we have prepared for your consideration is based on the master plan, as well as comments that we've had from the past commission meetings and from commissioners. So that's how we kind of narrowed to where we got. The project descriptions are very broad brush with very rough cost estimates, but we're hoping that we've given you enough of a picture for you to provide a recommendation. But as far as they're not detailed and we haven't done all of the full research. Once we have some direction, we'll spend the time to further develop the selected items. And tonight we really are looking for one primary and also a backup in case additional funds are not approved by the city council from the CIP or the project is far more costly than the original rough estimates. We do have a full agenda tonight, so also like to always say, try to keep your comments as concise as possible so that we can keep everything moving. And so without further ado, let me hand it off to Keith, who along with Brent Scroggs and Sandy Martin have done all the work to gather this information for your consideration tonight. Keith?
Thank you, Kathy. Christy, if you could pull up the presentation. As she does that, I just wanted to say good evening, Chair Lopez Lucy and commissioners. I will try to be brief on, but thorough on each of the projects. But hopefully the packet was able to get you started on understanding where we're going. But it is my privilege this evening to present the commission with the opportunity to select a project that the city will be able to, in part, use grant funds for through the Prop 68 per capita program. Christy, you can go to the next slide. As you may know, Prop 68, or the Parks and Water Bond Act, was a measure California voted on in June of 2018. And the funds the city will receive are through the non-competitive portion of the bond, which guarantees funds to agencies for recreation-based program or projects. San Ramon's guaranteed amount is approximately $177,000. Next slide. Based on the timeline outlined by the state, the project must be selected and the application be submitted by the end of this year, and the project is required to be completed no later than December 2023. Next slide. And as you can see, this is more of just a background of the bond and the money and some of the requirements. This slide identifies a number of project requirements, but the most important requirement is that the money must be spent on a project for recreational purposes. There are also matching funds that are required, and I outline them for each project later in the presentation. And finally, if the project entails multiple locations or multiple parks, each location is required to have a separate application filed. Next slide. This slide simply outlines what the grant money cannot be spent on. Most notably, the funds cannot be used for repairs or maintenance of an existing structure, next slide, which the state further defines as to a capital outlay, which is an eligible project, which is a building something new or for an existing structure to boost its condition beyond its current state, versus a repair, which is a project intended to allow for the continued use of a structure, or maintenance, which is ongoing project to extend the life of a structure. So you can kind of see the difference, and it's really that building something new or taking something that we have and making it completely not different, but upgrading it beyond what it currently is. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now the background on the money and the bond and Prop 68 is kind of done, and now we can kind of get to the meat of the presentation, which are the projects. In the upcoming slides, I will review each of the proposed projects, and I will briefly present the high-level concept for each project along with potential alternatives where they have been identified, the master plan significance, potential partners if they've been identified, the pros and cons of the project, as well as the budgetary implications. Next slide. Okay, so we will start with the first project, which would be to install a prefabricated restroom at Crow Canyon Gardens. This would entail removing the existing mobile modular restroom and install a permanent prefabricated restroom at the park. Next slide. So each of the projects will have a defining the project slide. The next one will list out the master plan goals as well as the pros and cons. And then the third slide for each of the projects will actually be the budget and how the money falls out. So obviously here it identifies the master plan goals that can be applied to this project, and then the pros and cons. And the pros for this project would help improve a park that has been identified as being in a poor condition, as well as it would help reduce the Parks and Community Services annual expenses of $7,500, which currently covers the cost of the existing mobile modular restrooms. The most notable con for this project would be there is no approved site plan as to where a permanent restroom should be located. Next slide. On the financial side, it's estimated that this project would cost roughly $350,000. With the grant funding applied, the city then, you can see that bottom line. So the grant funding, you can see the exact dollar amount that we're eligible for of $177,952. All of the projects are eligible for that amount of money, as they all would be well over that amount. Which then the estimated funds to complete the project that the city has to come up with in that fourth line would be $172,048 for this particular project. Next slide. The next project is to complete a walking loop at Athen Downs Park. And this ultimately would extend the current concrete path, which you see outlined in yellow, approximately 0.38 miles to the west side of the park, which you can see the new would be identified in red. That would create, it would be extended to the west side of the park and then extend towards Montevideo Drive, creating a 0.5 mile loop, which you can see identified as B. The red and yellow around B is half a mile. And then a 0.7 mile loop, which if you combine the B and C loop is 0.75 miles. This project, okay, next slide. The master plan goal for this project as identified would be in developing a walking loop with a non-slip surface. And the pros and cons of this project, it completes a much desired walking loop and provides access to the far side of the field for those with strollers or just not wanting to have to walk through the grass. If the commission desired, this project could be scaled back to complete just the 0.5 mile loop, which would be that loop B, the furthest from the street, as I outlined in the previous slide. One drawback of this project, as with several of the projects, is that it exceeds the Prop 68 funding. So obviously city funds would need to be, are required. As at this point, no partner has been identified to assist in contributing. Okay, next slide. On the financial side, you can see the financial implications. If you do the entire proposed project, so completing the B and C loops for the full 0.75 miles, it's approximately $365,000. And going down to that fourth line, if we selected that, the city would be looking at $187,000 additional to complete it. If we wanted to scale that back to option B, just creating that 0.5 mile loop, we're looking at a $246,000 price tag with a $68,000 roughly contribution from the city to complete it. Next slide. The third project that I'll propose tonight is to renovate the track at Boone Acres Park, which is to enhance the existing decomposed granite or DG track and replace it with a rubberized surface track. Next slide. The pros of this project, well, master plan goal, just like the last one, was to complete a walking loop with a non-slip surface, and obviously with an all-weather track that would be able to be used year-round. The pros of this project include it upgrades an existing amenity to from a DG surface, which obviously during rainy season can turn to mud, and we would turn that into an all-weather surface, so then accessible year-round. And then ultimately, we would reduce the number of complaints from the city currently receiving from residents regarding the DG track becoming mud, and reduces the amount and time public services spends maintaining the current track during the winter months, and then the surrounding grass during the summer months. And depending on the time of year and the sprinklers, public services has to redirect sprinklers so that the track doesn't get muddy, but then the grass dies. And so it's a never-ending cycle of one of them not being quite right. If you go to the next slide. On the financial side, the estimated cost for this project is approximately $250,000. And ultimately, the city would be looking at a $72,000 contribution to complete this project. Next slide. The next project is to convert a sports field to a cricket pitch. And this would be to convert an existing sports field to a dedicated cricket field and pitch, and to include batting cages and storage for a co-sponsored user group. And I wanted to clarify here, the field and the batting cages itself would operate just like all of our other fields or facilities, where it would be made available to both co-sponsored and private rental groups. The storage piece is what I was trying to say would be reserved for co-sponsored user groups only, as that is a benefit to being a co-sponsored group. So I just wanted to clarify that piece for this slide. Next slide. The pros and cons of this project, we have identified potentially 3 locations to convert baseball fields to a cricket pitch. If we were to take one of them offline to dedicate to a cricket pitch, we do have a synthetic field, baseball field, coming online or being installed at Sunrise Ridge Park. And another benefit or pro of this project is we have a potential partnership with the San Ramon Cricket Association. Along with the pros, there are a few cons, and that is if the sports park location is picked, the city would lose a lit 90-foot baseball field, one of 3 90-foot fields that we have in the city. And then ultimately, the Cricket Association, in talking to them, would ultimately prefer to have a 400-foot field that would then satisfy the older age groups, 15 and 16 and unders, and obviously adults. Unfortunately, at this time, we do not have, the city does not own a park where we can fit a 400-foot field without taking out other multiple, like soccer fields or what have you. So this is a difficult, right now, these are our best solutions to propose fields to convert. The Sunrise Ridge Park synthetic field that is going in, that is a 60-foot field. So it's not a like for like as to if we selected Sports Park versus the Sunrise Ridge Park coming online. Sunrise Ridge Park would ultimately be much closer to the East Branch and Hidden Valley baseball field sizes. Just again, points of clarification for you. Next slide. The staff estimates that the conversion would be approximately 300,000, and I've broken this down into the field conversion itself would be approximately $250,000. And that sounds like a lot of money, but then when you think about it, we're talking about laying sod down, updating the sprinkler systems to accommodate additional grass, installing the cricket pitch itself, and then reconfiguring the existing backstop to accommodate cricket. Then in addition to that, the batting cages and storage units estimated at roughly $50,000. And as of right now, we do have a potential partnership, like I said, with the San Ramon Cricket Association. I believe a verbal agreement, or at least in talks, they have said $20,000 seems reasonable, which then would bring the price tag for the city to roughly $102,000 to complete the project. Next slide. The next project would be to install shade structures in various parks to enhance existing amenities, such as a walking loop, a dog park, or existing benches. Next slide. The pros, the estimated project cost would fund up to 4 25 by 30 foot shade structures. However, the number of shade structures could actually increase if we use smaller shade structures. If it was deemed that we only needed 15 by 15, then potentially we would be able to get more shade structures versus the 4 25 by 30. So there is some wiggle room in how many shade structures that we could get out of this project. There are parks that have been identified that still need additional shade structures to be installed, which are listed there: Arlington Park, Fire Truck Park, Memorial Dog Park, Six Pillars, and then San Ramon Rancho Park. And these do come from both staff feedback as well as an existing spreadsheet that Public Services has maintained over the years. The one con would be that the multiple park locations would require multiple applications to be completed and filed with the state, which obviously then would require additional staff time. Next slide. The funding for this project would be minimal, as the city would look to use the grant funding of roughly $177,000 plus the required matching funds of $44,000 to get the overall project cost of the $222,000. So we would make the lowest amount matching funds that required. One potential would be to contribute the minimum number of dollars to keep the price tag down for this project. But clearly, obviously, we could spend more money if we needed to. The next slide. The next project would be to install outdoor fitness equipment at Alcosta's Senior and Community Center. And we would look to repurpose underutilized spaces around the senior center by installing approximately 6 to 8 pieces of outdoor fitness equipment. Next slide. The pros for this project include a potential partnership with the San Ramon Senior Center Foundation, We would also look to increase usage of the park through drop-in or programmed use of the new equipment, and it provides access to the public of free fitness equipment just located in the park. The cons, depending on the location of the equipment and extensive prep work may be required. The areas that which we are looking at or are considering on the site would be somewhere within the unutilized South Community Gardens, the grass area near the gazebo and bocce courts, or the shuffleboard and horseshoe pits, along with the grass area on the west side of the driveway just opposite those two amenities. So you can kind of see where those pieces of equipment might go. And then the final drawback of this project is that this project satisfies a medium master plan goal to be accomplished in years 6 through 10. All the projects that I have proposed up to this point have been high priority and to be completed in years 0 through 5. This is the first project that is not a high priority to be completed at this time. Next slide. With the potential partnership of the San Ramon Senior Center Foundation of approximately $10,000 and the estimated project cost, the city's contribution would be approximately $34,000, which you can see outlined here. Next slide. And our final project being proposed is the renovation of the organic gardens at Forest Home Farms, which includes several upgrades to the existing gardens. And you can see they're outlined on this slide, all the various components of what the upgrade and renovation would look like. Next slide. The pros of this project include the potential partnership with the San Ramon Historic Foundation, and this project would ultimately enhance the school tour program, the Saturday programs, as well as create additional educational opportunities that the new renovated garden presents to us. The one con of selecting this project is, again, this project satisfies medium to low goals of the master plan to be completed in years 11 through 20 or on an ongoing basis, respectively. Next slide. And then on the financial side, this is where this project looks really good. Between the partnership with the Historic Foundation of approximately $44,000 and the grant funding, this project would be fully funded and would not require additional city funding. Next slide. Okay, so as I begin to wrap up, throughout this presentation, I hope I have provided the commission with enough information on each of the factors that may be considered when selecting a project. And as Kathy stated, we are looking for a primary project as well as a secondary project in case the first one we cannot identify the proper funding for. Next slide. And then finally, for ease of reference, this slide is attachment B, which was provided with the staff report. And we can leave this on the screen if the commission wishes. And if not, we can obviously take it down. We can also scroll through the slides as you discuss, or and then ultimately with that, I am happy to answer any questions. And like, again, Kathy stated, there are a number of city staff members from both Parks and Community Services Department as well as Public Services to answer any questions if I am unable to satisfy your question. Thank you.
And also, just as a quick reminder, don't forget to go to public comment, as I think you may have comments on this item.
Yes. Okay, before we have the commission participants and their questions, I believe we should go to public comment. So I will now open the public comment. And Madam Secretary, do we have comments from the public?
We do have one hand raised, so we will go to that. One moment, please. The speaker will be Ramesh. Ramesh, you should be able to speak now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, commission members, chair, and the city staff. This is Rameshu Imadi. I'm the chair for the SRCA, San Ramon Cricket Association Youth. And we are serving, SRCA is serving the youth for last 6 years. And we have grown from 30 members to 200 members. And we are limited the enrollment because of lack of facility in spite of huge demand from the youth. And with the limited facilities we have two of the girls in the community made it into USA national team, which is a very proud moment for all of us. And 7 of the boys from Cal High and DVHS are representing the USA national West Coast team practice squad. And thanks to the city and the commission for helping us with the 2 fields, which is shared by adults. And at this time, I would like to put in a strong request to consider having a practice facility, which is not available in the city, that is pushing the youth to travel to adjacent cities as far as Fremont and Cupertino. That is one of the main constraints we have in accommodating ever-growing demand in the community. And also, we don't have a standard youth field, which we heard from the city staff. And definitely there is a room to sharpen the pencil there and bring down the cost based on the latest technologies and awareness of the cricket pitch construction in the Bay Area over last 3-4 years. There are 10 cricket fields came up in different cities, even in adjacent Dublin and Pleasanton. So I'm pretty confident that we can sharpen the pencil and bring down the cost. And definitely I'm hopeful to work with the city staff, finding the field that suits the needs. And I want to thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have any other people wishing to speak?
No, we do not.
Okay,
Oh, wait, we do have one more. I'm sorry. We're going to bring in one more. Going to be Sachin. Sachin, you have the ability to talk.
Thank you, Commission and Chair, for providing us the opportunity to voice our opinion and the support that we have been getting from the city of San Ramon to support cricket as a sport. As you all know, this sport has increased in demand tremendously, though we try to restrict all our campaign. We in fact try to discourage, but just because of the change in demographics in the city, the demand for the sport has grown tremendously. And also, all these days, there was no formal organization within US, but that organization now came up. Now we have a national body called USA Cricket Association, and that will catapult the demand even further. So we request you to consider expanding, adding some practice facilities so our kids don't have to travel to other cities in order to practice. Thank you.
thank you for speaking. Further comments?
I do not see anyone else asking to talk.
Okay, at this time, I will close the public comment. And then this time, we will then open it up to comments from our commissioners. And I again would like to reiterate what Kathy said, that we need to keep our comments concise and on track. And if a couple of us have said the same thing, perhaps that we just, agree with that commissioner that has said that. But anyway, we will now open it up, and I will then call on speakers if I can get this to move so I can see you all. Okay, we have Commissioner Dorlick. You would like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Taking a look at these projects, I would my pick for at least the top three to discuss would be the restrooms at Crow Canyon Gardens, the cricket pitch, and then the shade structures. I think the timeframes for the restrooms at Crow Canyon Gardens is sufficient enough for the planning to be in place where they would be situated. We've had two public speakers talking about the cricket pitch and the need for additional practice facilities. And as was mentioned by Ramesh, there has been just a surge not only in the demand but also in the quality with the women's team and going to national competition. And then the shade structures are something that we've had on our agenda for many years, have been supported by the community, and especially as the demographics and there's older folks in the area, they look at that as a gathering place, and also the shade structure would allow them to spend more time in the parks. So from my way of thinking, those also correspond with the prioritization in the master plan. So those would be the three that I would propose, not in any precise order, but at least as the three that seem to be the most fitting for conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have to speak is Commissioner Beerbaum.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I would agree with Commissioner Dorlich. I have a slightly different way of looking at it, and would like to get the feedback from the staff. I'm thinking of how to split a couple of these projects to start, one of them and maybe complete another one. And the two that I have on my radar is the practice cages for cricket, which is estimated at roughly $50,000, and then the shade structures. I see this meeting two needs, meeting the needs of the youth of San Ramon, and then also meeting the needs of our seniors. And both of those were highlighted in our master plan. I also see that maybe we can scale back on the number of shade structures depending on the budget availability. I realize that you said that, Keith, that you were going to have separate applications. And I also realized that you said that you could downsize some of the shade structures to save some money. I'd like to see all of that happen, okay? Unfortunately, it would add to the staff requirement, but I also realize that we're going to be short on money for the next couple of years. And I really believe that we need to get started on some things. The cricket batting cage, I think, would need to be located at the park that has the highest probability of eventually going to be converted. But batting cages can be moved, okay? And so I view those two projects as the high priority. The restrooms at Crow Canyon Gardens, I think, need to wait until we figure out the whole thing on Crow Canyon Gardens. I understand there's a $7,500 cost every year, but I think in a year or two, we'll have that figured out. And quite frankly, hopefully there will be funds so that we can do the whole park at one time. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Commissioner Heidi Consenton Lee.
Okay, thank you, Chair Lopez Lucy. First, I want to say, Keith, great job, because this is one of the best. We always get great staff reports, but you answered the questions. You talked about, even before I started digging in, I was thinking to myself, okay, what's the priority within the master plan? You put it in there front and center. So you did a really good job. Thank you for that, and your team. So whoever worked with you, thank you for that. Chair Lopez Lucy, I'd like to start with a question for Kathy. And my first question is, how likely is it that any one of these projects would be already addressed or funded by an alternate funding source, or be on the city's radar screen to have done anyway?
That was one of my questions. So good, Kathy, you can answer that, please.
Okay, Karen, the chair says you can answer it, so I'm ready.
I think the San Ramon Cricket Association has been doing a good job of getting the word out there that they need a cricket pitch. So there is definitely some buzz around the community in regards to that. But at this point, there is no funding identified. So it's very difficult to say what that might turn out or look like. And again, why potentially selecting a primary project and a secondary project is beneficial in this case, because we may be able to find a way to do both, and then that also gives us some direction that way. But there's conversations around some of it. I'm trying to recall on the shade structures if there's anything planned in the CIP. Do you remember, Keith?
We used to have some dedicated funding for that we allocated annually. Will, you probably remember this. Every year we would do a couple more shade structures. Does that not exist anymore?
Yeah, that was a WW grant fund that funded those shade structures. So it got to the end of that grant funding and is no longer there. Although the Public Services Department knows clearly that it's a commission priority. So I know that they constantly are trying to find ways to include it.
Right.
I believe last year there wasn't any that were funded and or erected.
Okay. Well, my thought process, I looked at things like scope of impact, whether it was targeted benefit or a universal benefit, the cost of the project versus the bang for the buck, whether it was a master plan priority that held. I wasn't here during the discussions regarding or the development of the latest master plan, but I hold a lot of value with that. The alignment with the grant guidelines was obviously very important. Also, I looked at things like the potential impact on city revenues, because I think we may have some opportunities here. And then also, obviously, the potential for partnership held a lot of value for me. So my top choice, I agreed with a lot with what both of my fellow commissioners who've spoken said, but particularly with Commissioner Birnbaum, I am interested in seeing how we can maybe divide up this resource to hit a couple of things. My top choice was shade structure. I feel like our residents have consistently communicated a need for shade. It has broad community benefit. I like the multi-generational benefits. It's kind of one of those things that will benefit the seniors, but also the little ones need that shade. So, it kind of helps with everybody. What I like about it is, if properly placed, it could potentially make rental spaces within our parks more attractive. So there could be a case made for it increasing our revenue stream. We obviously are looking at for things like that, but I also do realize that we do have an existing list of places where shade needs to be put. So that wasn't my first thing. And I love the idea, obviously, of getting folks outside. My second choice, the second item that jumped out at me was regarding cricket. I feel like I'm drawn to the cricket pitch, a new cricket pitch, if we can find the right property. Where I'm aligning with Commissioner Birnbaum is maybe as a first step looking at the 3 side-by-side batting cages for practice space, because I feel like we are establishing ourselves as a very successful hub for cricket. And honestly, if we can provide enough infrastructure and support to continue with that momentum, we could bring folks in that drive a revenue stream. They go to our restaurants, they visit our parks for tournaments and so forth. But I guess, I don't know if Ramesh is still around, but I guess one of the things we'd have to look at is if having that cricket pitch and field, I'm a little concerned that we wouldn't have the space for it. So the 3 options that you guys have suggested do not meet what I understand. It would have to be 362 to 400 feet to be able to hold a tournament on it. And so that would be a concern. So perhaps what Commissioner Birnbaum was saying about at least providing that infrastructure for the practice fields so that the kids don't have to go to other areas. That might be it. I love this idea because I like that it fosters youth engagement. That was specifically mentioned in the grant. It facilitates some diverse activities per our resolution. Again, potentially bringing in some visitor dollars. And I love the idea that the San Ramon Cricket Association is open to a partnership, because I think we've often talked at the commission about the fact that we've got to be really creative in how we fund things, and partnerships can be a very effective way. So again, my concluding statement would be, I like the idea of maybe a combo. I know it's going to take some staff time, but I think we got to be really powerful in how we leverage our resources. So, so that's sort of the road that I was going down. I agree, we're not right where we need to be with replacing the bathroom at the gardens. So that would not be a top priority for me.
If I can just jump in real quick on the one property, the one park that may be suitable, but would definitely need to be more thoroughly walked and measured is East Branch Park. That one has the most potential for a larger size field, but me eyeballing it and walking it and then using aerial measuring on Google, obviously we would need to do a much better job, but that would be the one park that has the potential for the largest cricket field. Just so we all know.
Yeah, because once we get out of our COVID, once we get in a better place with regard to the pandemic, I'm hoping that we can, on many levels, see the benefit of hosting tournaments here, you know, for cricket, as we have in the past. But it's my understanding, if I recall correctly from what I was told, that those were being held at Rancho with kind of a makeshift pitch situation. But that's how it was done. So yeah, so maybe it's looking at it as phases, as Commissioner Birnbaum was sort of alluding to, and starting with that practice area. Thank you, Chair Lopez Lucy.
Thank you. I just have a question while we're on that subject before I go to the others for speaking. I wanted to question, I had thought that one of the fields at the sport park would be almost to that level that they need. Is that incorrect?
The sports park field, it's a 90-foot baseball diamond, but still, because of where a large overhead Musco light is positioned, again, we would have to take a closer look, but where this upright is positioned, it seems that that would hamper us from having a larger field than 310 feet.
Oh, okay. That was my question on that went along with that.
May I make one brief comment? Because I see we have someone in the attendees that wants to comment, but I would like to announce that speakers may only speak one time during public comment per item. Thank you.
Do you want me to go? Is this a public comment speaker?
No, he had already spoken, so he's only allowed to speak one time.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
However, can I ask Christy, if in fact a commissioner wishes to ask a question of a speaker, is that okay?
I think Kathy is saying yes.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, Ramesh would like to speak again. He maybe has heard something he wanted to clarify. So if somebody had a question, they could ask Ramesh. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, just so whoever hasn't spoken knows that that's an option.
Okay, our next speaker would be Vice Chair Oslin.
Thank you, Chair Lopez Lucy, and thank you, Keith, for the detailed report. This is tough. So many great options. The thing that stood out the most to me was the installing the new shade structures. I feel like it gives us the most bang for our buck. And I drove around and visited all the parks that you had listed, and they need shade. Some of them are newer parks and they have very, very immature trees. Picnic tables that have no covering. So the ones that you identified definitely need shade. There was the bark and ride. I was wondering if that also could be added to the list, since I know that there's been some interest in dog park improvements. So that was actually my first choice, was the installing the new shade structures. I'm sorry that it has to cause more staff time to apply for these different structures, but I feel like it's really important, especially in these newer parks without mature trees. I'm kind of going out on a limb here. I really kind of discounted the new cricket pitch because I felt like it wasn't really meeting the needs of what was needed, and as far as the size. And so now hearing more information, I'm more intrigued to find out more about this, but I had taken that off of my list. The Crow Canyon Gardens, totally agree. I feel like we need a little bit more time. I'm feeling like this may drag out, I don't know, but we do need a permanent bathroom, but felt that I took that one off my list. But the two others were Athen Downs Walking Loop and Boone Acres. And I feel that what's needed is, what I liked about Athen Downs is it's a existing walking loop that is not complete. It's a high priority and it needs to get done. And I felt like a grant might be a really great way to get that completed. So that was kind of my second choice for an alternate. And then Boone Acres was sort of a second tie, feeling that, again, I visited it. It could be improved. And especially if we're spending a lot of money on maintenance, it just seemed like maybe that's another alternate. So I do want to hear a little bit more about the cricket pitch. So those are my recommendations.
Thank you. And Commissioner Roberts.
Thanks, Chair Lopez-Lucy, and thanks, Keith, for a great presentation. These are all amazing projects, obviously, and I'll try to give a different or a unique perspective in this discussion here. So I'm proud to have grown up here in San Ramon, and I can honestly say that San Ramon shaped who I am today, giving a lot of credit to the tremendous youth sports programs available to me as a child. Growing up here in San Ramon, we had a population of 20,000. Not only have we quadrupled in size, but we've become so much more diverse. And it's this diversity that has increased demand for a more diverse array of sports, specifically sports like cricket. So I can't imagine what my childhood would have been like if San Ramon didn't have a dedicated soccer or baseball field. And so right now, the city does not have a dedicated cricket pitch. And granted, we have two schools. We have pitches at two schools, but it's my understanding that these are limited usage, being on school grounds, and are overcrowding more and more based on demand. So, based on cricket being a high priority project for the Parks and Community Services Commission, based on high community demand for cricket, specifically within our youth, it being a youth engagement type project, and with an existing funding partner identified potentially, I would strongly support the proposed plan to convert an existing sports field to a cricket pitch, and then I would follow my fellow commissioners on more shade structures, as that's an obvious to me next priority, as it's been, it's come up so much since I've been a commissioner over the last couple of years. So I would say shade structures would be my second choice. Thank you.
Thank you. And Heidi, our new commissioner, we're glad that you're here and can join us this evening. And your comments, please.
Thank you, Chair Lopez-Lucy. I appreciate the opportunity. And I just want to say, Keith, and to the staff, as a new member, this was a phenomenal experience to be able to read such a comprehensive and thorough proposal. Very, very well written. And in fact, as I dived into it, all the questions that I had pretty much got answered. I was ready to I have a question about this and this. It was just phenomenal. I can't possibly thank you enough. It's very, very well done. And I don't know whether it's a blessing or a curse that we have so many phenomenal projects to choose from. I mean, obviously we wish we didn't have that many priorities, but we also have so many great opportunities. I will not belabor the comments already by the other commissioners have been fantastic and insightful and makes me feel like I'm in the right place. So I'm really appreciative of that, but I'll focus on, I would say, my two top priorities, which are the shade and the cricket. If we're going to talk about the others, I may have a couple comments, but I sounds like we're narrowing in. I will say that these are really tough competing choices, as everybody has talked about. I am passionate for youth sports. I live in the Doherty Valley and I see the need and the demand for cricket, and it's fantastic the way it has been growing throughout our community, and we need to find a field for them. There's absolutely not a question in my mind. This needs to happen, and among many competing priorities. Having said that, one of the things that makes it harder for me to feel like it's the first choice is we don't have the field truly identified. And my concern is if we push this into a place that really isn't ideal, it's not necessarily going to be the right end result, because what we need to find, if this is really our high priority, we need to find a place where they can have what they need, obviously within reason. And the fact that we don't have a large enough field is a concern. And we have very few lit fields. And even if that was large enough, I'd still kind of wonder, you know, that's used by multiple sports, and I'd be concerned about cannibalizing the whole field, but it's not large enough. On the other hand, shade is so incredibly important. And again, in the newer parts of San Ramon, I am so proud of the trees in this city. I've moved here 15 years ago, and that has always been one of my favorite things. But in the newer parts of San Ramon, we don't have the shade, we don't have the trees. They tried, I don't know what's going on over here, but like we can't seem to grow the trees like you know, other places. And yet we have more and more people outside. And especially during COVID, and this is not going away. We're gonna keep needing to do outside social distance for a long time. Plus we're an outdoor community. And then it's getting hotter. It's getting hotter and hotter. We're having more and more 100 degrees, and yet we need the kids and the seniors and the adults to be able to be outside. So for me, the shade structure really stood out as, oh yeah. So if we find that we have other funding potential for that, and we can get that done, then, you know, we can, for me, then moving on. But to me, that seems to be the fundamental priority that jumps out as the most you know, it hits the most people. And it's almost like it's a, we have to have it. We have to have a place where people can go and they're not being burned by the picnic tables, where they can stand outside for more than 10 minutes. And, you know, it's a basic need. And the cricket is an incredibly important need. We have these kids out there, and I want them doing more than academics. I want them finding their passion. I want them socializing. I want them having physical activity. I want them feeling great and being part of something. So it's really important, but I want to find the right field for them. So I really like the idea of doing the shade structures, and I'd say let's do them. Let's get it done and do as good a job, and then let's work on either finding the additional funding with the partnership to get those the batting cages, practice cages in. Let's do that, and then let's be working on the long-term plan, short term, hopefully in a much quicker term, to get a large, full-use cricket field that we all as a community can be proud of. Hopefully that wasn't too long, but that's my thinking.
Thank you. And I'd like to call on Ms. Ramesh, please. Do you have your comments?
Yeah, I mean, first I have to agree with what all the previous commissioners said about the cricket pitch and the shade structures. I did a little bit of limited research from the high school end, and from what I could gather, there are like high school clubs and youth groups within San Ramon other than the USCA that focus on cricket and have their own cricket teams. So I definitely think there is larger demand than just the the San Ramon Cricket Association. But since most of these students would fall under the U15 and U16 and adult age range, I don't know how much use we could really get from them. And I feel like If we do choose to invest in building a cricket pitch, if we choose to sort of build one that a large portion of the population can't use, we may be just sort of harming these cricket players, because I feel like if there's any other way for us to get this funding outside of this grant, that would be more ideal to accommodate the 400 feet. So if there's any way for us to build a cricket structure that can meet the needs of the population, I would definitely say that we should prioritize like the shade structures first.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Dorlick, do you have some additional information?
I was going to see if you were ready for a motion.
Well, no, I'd like to make my comments if you
Oh,
would.
sure. No
Please
problem.
let me. Thank you. Thank you for all of your comments. And I think you've all hit on very good things and were very succinct in your, and had done your studies and everything. And I would have to agree with all of you that the shade structure is one of my items also, because living, as Heidi says, out in this area, the trees aren't large enough, and there's lots of hot days that we have. And so it hits both seniors and children and little children and all. So that would definitely be one of my things that we can, and it provides safety for our people in our city. I'm a little bit concerned on the cricket, because I also have heard that the city council is very much looking into this also, and I feel that that might take priority of what we would also want to do, and that we need to back up. So I like the cricket portion that of, you know, the batting cage and all, that might be good. And then my other thing is that we want to get people out walking. So the walking continuation in Athen Downs, I think, is very good. And I also thought the Boone Acres, if you're walking there, it would be very disenchanting, because I walk all the time. But if I had to walk through mud, either summer or winter, I wouldn't really care for it, and I probably wouldn't walk there. So I'm not sure, whatever. So I'm kind of mixed there with Athen Downs. That does give a bigger portion that you can be walking. But I guess definitely I would go, my opinion would be the shade first. And then I have, you know, some issues on the cricket. And also I think I would not consider the mobile restroom, because I think that fits into another issue that will be decided at another time. So those are my comments, but if anyone has any additional information they'd like to share before we go to a motion, I would like to hear from them. But I think you've all really done your homework, and I don't need to restate whatever you all have said. So if you're ready for a motion, Ms. Commissioner Dorlick, then we could hear your motion, please.
Sure. I would move that the two prioritizations would be the cricket field and the shade structures, and that the cricket field would be first with an investigation to determine if there was a field that would be appropriate with a little bit more further staff time. And if there was, then that we would recommend that. And if there wasn't, that we would recommend the shade structures. And I so move.
I second that.
Okay, is there discussion on the motion, please?
Point of question.
Yes, Heidi.
Commissioner Dorlick, are you saying that the cricket pitch would be the top choice and that the shade structure would be the second choice?
Correct, pending upon further staff investigation into identifying an appropriate field in the short term within the time frame that we need to make the proposal for the funding. And if that can't be identified within that time, then we would look at the shade structures.
Okay, the reason I asked the question is what I was hearing is more commissioners suggesting shade structure above cricket and cricket number 2, or a separate or a division of the two, you know, resources over the two projects.
Then you can vote as opposing the motion.
Oh, I know what my options are. Thank you, Commissioner Dorlick, for schooling me. But
no.
Yeah,
if you had, you know, those of us who went to several of the cricket matches over the last several years have come to understand that most of the finals for the cricket matches were in Dublin and Pleasanton, because there were not fields that could accommodate in San Ramon. And so, you know, we're seeing that those communities have the facilities to accommodate the, tournaments and not San Ramon. So what I was suggesting in the motion was that we have further staff to take a look and see, is there a field that can accommodate that? So we can keep some of those tournaments here in San Ramon. Obviously, we want to cooperate with the other communities in the Tri-Valley, but it'd be nice to keep them here. And if within the timeframes that we need to make a decision based upon the funding requirements, if it's identified, then we should move forward with the cricket. And if it cannot be identified in that time frame, then the shade structures are certainly well-founded and have not been able to be funded in at least one budget cycle in the past. So that was the motion.
I have well, now it's past me. I have a question for you. Oh, I know what it is. Okay, sorry. But in the cricket tournaments that you've been to or whatever, do Pleasanton and Dublin have the appropriate size of cricket fields to invite to have invitations, sent out to the tournaments in their cities? Are their fields the appropriate size?
The ones that were utilized were Fallon Park, so in the Fallon Sports Complex, and then the Patelco Field on Burnell by Valley. The finals were, at least one year, the finals were at Fallon, and one other year, the finals were at Patelco Field in Pleasanton. So yes, that is correct.
So they have fields that meet their length-wise.
Correct. Yes.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes.
I do think Ramesh is still in the audience, so if you wanted a specific answer to that question, I'm sure he would be happy to tell you the size of those fields.
All right. Ramesh, if you're there, could you answer the question for us, please? Are you able to bring him in, Christy?
He's in.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Chair. Yes, I completely kind of support what Will is saying, and he's absolutely correct. Fallon Sports Park and the Pleasanton Patelco has 360 to 400 feet fields there. And for your information, Dublin is breaking the ground to have a dedicated cricket stadium at Fallon Sports Park, which is going to be at the very international kind of a level standard, which is going to be completed by next year fall.
2022?
Yes, that is in addition to the existing cricket field, what
And
they have.
They're exact, they meet the exact requirements that are needed, correct?
Exactly. And also they're building 7 batting cages, practice facilities at the same park.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last sentence. I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is, in addition to the 5 practice facilities, they have 5 batting cages they have already. They're building additional 7 at the new facility along with the field.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Commissioner Heidi Elliott?
Yeah, so I have a question for staff, Keith or Kathy. In terms of, my understanding is I don't know that we have a lot of time for putting forth the proposal. How much time, do we have time for additional investigation? Obviously, we'd be giving you direction, so you'd be able to not wait for us to meet again. But A, what's the time frame? And B, I think, Keith, you mentioned that there is it sounded to me like a narrow possibility, but possible, that the Hidden Valley, or I'm sorry, East Branch Park could be a possibility, which is intriguing because it doesn't create a multiple use issue. But I guess my question is that worth, really thinking about putting this as the first choice? And what's the time? Does that actually logistically make sense in terms of the time frame?
So the time frame is simply completing the online application, identifying the funds, how much it's going to cost, how much we're requesting from the state, how much we're contributing, description of the project. It's an online application. It goes straight to the state to be reviewed. And that simply has to be submitted by the end of this year. So by December 31st. So yes, there is time to file the application. As far as East Branch, it would be one, probably talking to Ramesh to make sure that we have a full understanding of exactly what is needed, so that the city's not wasting our time on installing a smaller field than what's necessary. And two, then going out with public services and really getting accurate measurements as to where and how the field lays, so that the field fits, the open grass area, as well as how the diamond fits in there.
Okay, and in the event that this vote gets accomplished in one sweep, I just want to say that I still feel it's fundamentally important that the shade structure happen. And I think that, cricket is a little more sexy, and I have, given the support I hear at the commission from you all, from everybody here and the community, I feel like that one, we're going to have more than one shot at. And I really fundamentally would like to see the shade structures in. I want to see both. So I would flip it if we don't get the chance. And if I'm in the position of voting no, it's not that I'm not supportive of the cricket pitch, but I really don't. I would really like to see the shade structure done. And I also am concerned that if we leave it at this, there could be a squeezing it to make it happen. And that pressure to go forward and make it work will find us in a few years having this conversation again, saying it's not enough. So it would be a lot easier if I knew it was a home run, so to speak, already. It would make it harder for me, but given that it doesn't feel likely, I would almost rather delay the vote if that's what we're doing. And if we truly have time, my vote would be shade structure today, partial cricket, and let's keep working on cricket. Or if we are not sure and we want to revisit the cricket more, I'd like to have it come back to us.
Okay, may I interrupt here? You may have an amendment to this motion. You don't have to vote on this motion totally. You can amend it if you wish to change the positions. If you'd rather have shade first and the other second, you can do amendment to the motion.
I would offer an amendment that we flip the priority and make the shade structure the priority, with a direction to work on the co-sponsorship to try and satisfy the batting cages idea, and have the cricket be the second choice. Or yeah, I guess we'll leave it at that.
Well, my question is, you've said the batting cages, so do you need just the batting cages, or you do want the whole entire cricket pitch?
I don't think,
because Commissioner Dorlich's was for the entire cricket.
Correct. And that's, well, and what I'm saying is we can't fund both. So priority wise, it doesn't seem like the shade structure is likely to fall out. I would guess that if we pursue shade structures, I don't know that we need a second.
That's not my question. My question to you is, you're saying batting cages, and Commissioner Will said the entire cricket.
That's correct. I'm agreeing with
two different things.
Commissioner Birnbaum that we consider trying to do a funding of 2 projects and find a way to make that work, but not the full cricket pitch at this time.
Okay,
Chair Lopez Lucy, once you get a second on Commissioner Ellicott-Pesick's motion, or I have a question for staff, if you don't mind.
Yes. So, okay. So what I'm hearing then, your amendment would be shade structure 1, and then to the investigate the cricket batting cage area. And so that is her amendment. Am I correct? Okay. And then I would need a second to that amendment.
I second.
Any question? Commissioner Heisenton Lee, yes.
Yes. So Kathy and Keith, is it fundamentally going to negatively impact anything if we continue this discussion for a vote for the next meeting?
It's the one thing that you're going to get tangled up in here is the CIP. So as you saw, all of these projects had money that was needed to be allocated from the city budget in order to move forward. So the CIP budget is coming to you at your next meeting. So if whatever we're trying to do does not get included there, then we kind of miss that money vote. So it would be helpful at least to identify the two projects, and if you want to split the money on them, or if you want to focus just on one and another as a backup. That's kind of fundamentally I think the pieces that would help us be able to then put these pieces forward.
And then as a follow-up question, Kathy, can we, as part of the CIP process, then look for additional funding for the number 2 choice here?
You can potentially discuss it, as public services will be bringing that forward. So you're correct. So for example, you have talked about shade structures every year. It's definitely something you can express again. Even at this, anything that you recommend that goes forward still has to be funded by the city council ultimately. So nothing except for the free one, the one that you're not talking about, is a guarantee. So that's why the funding question is there, because there is not any funding currently identified in the CIP for any of these projects. So it's an essential part of the step in the process. And I see Don's been trying very hard. Sorry.
Yes, he's got his hand up here. Commissioner Burnham.
Keith, when can you get the answers on whether East Branch is a feasible cricket pitch? Because quite frankly, we're trying to guess at something. I think there's a consensus here that we want to do something, but we don't have all the facts. So can you have an answer in 2 weeks?
The answer to that is more than likely yes. I would need to get with Public Services, Brent Scroggs, program manager over there, and really go look at the field and get the measurements and look at placement. And more than likely, between our two schedules, we can probably, I'm speaking on behalf of both of us, I would assume that we could make that happen.
So what I would suggest is we do exactly what Heidi suggested, is that we delay the vote, we get more information, we can have a special meeting on the 24th, because we can do that, right, Kathy?
I'm going to decline that is not possible. We've already delayed the CIP discussion, so we must provide at least some indication to the Public Services Department so they can be prepared for all of the CIP meetings that they have coming. So we've held a spot, but we need it. So the thing when I want you to go back up to that 50,000 foot level that I started speaking about, because that's what we need from you. We don't need you to place the cricket pitch. We need you to give us direction, overarching, and then we can go and look for it. If we can't find a spot that will fit the cricket pitch that will work for the Cricket Association, then we can't find it. We identified the 3 ones that we knew were that size that they could fit in. And if they really need a 400, then there is not a 400 that doesn't have a lot of big ramifications, in which case it is not a good project. I think I hear you. The question is, if we could find a 400, and would it be a good project, or do you prefer the shade structures and the cricket is the second one? I mean, I think we need that. And I want you to kind of stay out of the weeds of it and trying to place. It's kind of like if we wanted to place every shade structure, we could, but that's not really what we need. We just need overarching. What do you feel is most important and where we should take our energy and put it? And then we will figure out whether or not it's feasible and try and place, I think, probably both projects into the CIP as proposals and see if we can get them funded.
Thank you for that. That clears lots of things. Now, are you all ready to vote on the amendment? Okay, the amendment is to have the shade structure, number 1, and number 2 would be the cricket. So are you all ready to vote? And then I'll ask, yes,
Yeah.
you have a question.
Commissioner Heidi Ellicott-Pesik. Actually, that's not, I did hear that so we're voting on Heidi EP's amendment, correct?
Yes.
Your amendment was number 1, that shade structure should be first, and then that the practice batting cages be also included, or a secondary choice. Can you clarify?
That's what I was trying to get her to clarify, but
okay.
I think we have to go. I think you would have to go in this instance, as Kathy has said, is your cricket field, because that would include the batting cage also in that.
Okay, well, let's let Heidi.
So
can you clarify, Heidi?
You have to kind of make a decision. That's what I was trying to have you do, is just the cricket cage or in the entire cricket field on your amendment.
I would prioritize the shade structures as the number 1.
No, that's not it. It's only the cricket that's there. We're questioning you.
I appreciate that. I want to restate it just to be clear. I would prioritize the shade structures as the number 1 priority. I would put the cricket pitch in the general sense as the second priority and direct the Parks Department, or give them the direction that we would like them to consider whether the batting cages are something that they could do with the shade structure, assuming they don't go forward with the cricket pitch. Does that make sense?
So if I'm hearing you, if you don't mind, Chair Lopez-Lucy, may I validate what I'm hearing?
Yes, that's true.
I'm hearing option number 1, combo shade structures with batting cages. Option 2 would be the full-on cricket pitch. Is that correct?
Correct. You want the batting cage with number 1 with the shade structure.
If that is, I think the staff is going to look at the feasibility, but yes, if that's feasible to do, we're providing them guidance, right? And that's what I think the guidance is if it makes sense and in their plan to start that process and give some support to the Cricket Association while a field is yet to be identified and funded, that be something they look to. So yes.
Okay, because what I'm thinking is that if I'm in Keith's position, oops, I just lost you guys. If I'm in Keith's position, we're looking at even more applications, number 1, because we're looking at, and I'm not saying, I'm actually quite supportive of what you're saying, Commissioner Ellicott-Pesik. We're looking at an application for the batting cages. We're looking at however many parks we suggest putting shade structures in. Those then would be, right, Keith, separate applications. And then we'd have to reduce the number potentially of shade structures to accommodate for the 50,000 it would cost for the practice batting cages. So I think there are a lot of things that are feasible. It's just where we want to, because our role here is really to advocate where we're going to put that limited Prop 68 grant funding, where we're going to put it. So what I liked what Kathy said is that during the CIP process, my hope would be is that I'd love to be able to accomplish both the cricket pitch and the shade structure. I'd like for us to work with staff to find out a way, realizing, we have financial constraints, but how can we get both done? So that's what I'm hearing from my colleagues is we kind of like to get, for most everybody, we'd like to get both done. And you've got your top 2. The priority is now what we're trying to work through with a little caveat of practice cages. But I do recall speaking with Ramesh and him saying that or maybe it wasn't Ramesh, but somebody saying you probably want to put those batting cages where you got the newly revised cricket pitch field, right? That it should be sort of a package deal. So I do see value in that point. But Kathy, what, in light of the fact that I think folks are really sort of excited about the possibility of getting both done, can you give us you can't look in your crystal ball, but can you give us a sense of process and possibility in this regard?
I haven't seen the CIP information yet in regards to new projects, so I don't know what else is vying for the dollars. So you're right, I don't have a crystal ball on this one. Like I said, we have the money with the grant, so we know we've got something we can spend. We just don't know what. It is feasible. I think if you want us to pursue looking at both priorities in some version of a split, that would probably survive a motion that we can then go and figure out what we can do and what we can't do. It's a little helpful to know which way you lean, and that's the only thing that's a little fuzzy still, is if you all prefer, the majority prefers the shade structure being slightly higher or the cricket pitch being slightly higher. But ultimately we can work with a combo effect and see what we can do to stretch the dollars. I think that might be what I'm hearing you say, but you've got to come back and address your motions.
Yes.
Right. Heidi, did you want to amend the motion to be more clear? Because it sounds like we've given staff the direction that we want them to look at cricket and batting cages. So are you wanting to amend it?
You can amend the amendment.
You're in uncharted territory for us here, Carol.
Well, I've done this
votes
before.
and get yourself straightened out.
You can amend the amendment, but then you do first vote on the amended amendment, then you go back and vote on the first amendment you had, that whatever you voted there, and then you go back to then a new amended motion. You can do that.
Yeah, I am going to amend to I would like to move that we direct staff to that our top priority would be the shade structure. Our second priority would be the cricket pitch, which would then include the practice, whatever practice batting cages are tied to that. Thank you.
Okay, so now you have an amended motion. So you're going to vote firstly on what Heidi Kensington Lee said. So, all right, you ready to vote?
Poor Christy.
Okay, number one. Okay, Christy.
Commissioner Dorlick,
No.
Commissioner Keniston Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Birnbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts,
No.
Commissioner Ellicott,
Aye.
Vice Chair Oslin,
Aye.
Chair Lopez Lucy.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, now that really kind of just that precedes the amendment that Commissioner Elliott Pesic did. So that amended motion would be then that basically just what Heidi said. That would be what it is, because that would change that to that.
Yep.
Correct, Kathy? Is that what you're hearing?
So what I think I heard was that you made a motion that we'd use the shade structures as the number one priority, and that the number two priority be the cricket and the batting cages. And it was unclear if you wanted any split of funds or if it was just straight. That's what I thought I heard.
Consider my amendment withdrawn.
Then you have, well, I can't do that now since it's already been seconded and you've already amended that. So I'm trying to say how I would say the amendment went to the amended first amendment, because she then had shade structures and the batting cage to investigate it. So that is automatically done with the one that Heidi did. Probably what we should have done is gone back and voted on the amendment motion to vote that down if the other people like that. So, but we've already voted on that. So I don't know how to put that into the amendment to the amendment. Usually you're just striking something and inserting something. So I think what you're actually doing is striking her Heidi motion of prioritizing it much better than she did. So I think that would mean that her amendment would then be that number one would be the one, and the second one would be that, which would eliminate your basic amendment. Technically is what she's done. So The amendment.
Sounds like a great Robert's Rules of Order exercise. We never went back to Will's initial.
Right.
No, but we do that last because he made the first motion.
Christina, save us.
So anyway, the basic thing is I see that the amendment will now read that the first choice is the shade structure, and the second one is instead of you suggesting that they investigate it, that would eliminate the investigation. So technically, if you want to pass this one, then you can get back to your regular motion. So she's just adding to your amendment that it's much clearer.
It
that
is.
1 and 2. So if you want to
Okay,
take it
Chair
again-
Lopez Lucy, can we get some guidance, please, from our city clerk? Christina, have you been watching
Have
this?
you done this? How would you do? She made the amendment to the amendment. I don't know how to phrase the amended amendment.
I considered Commissioner Keniston Lee's amendment a friendly amendment, which I accepted, and therefore
I don't think you
subsumed
have
mine.
I don't think you have a friendly one that, to my knowledge, but what would you suggest, Christina?
So there was 3 motions that were made. We had the first motion by Commissioner Dorlick.
Yeah.
Commissioner Ellicott Pesic made an amended motion.
Yeah.
And then Commissioner Heidi Keniston Lee made an amendment to the amended motion. So it's a 3 motions technically. How you proceeded was correct. We got a first, a second on that amended motion, and it passed 5-2. So the decision was the motion that was made by Heidi Keniston Lee.
So then we don't vote on
You don't go back to the amended motion or
we
the
just go
original
back to the irregular motion that it's amendment. No, we can just do hers.
Because the motion passed, you don't go back to the other 2 motions that were made.
Well, that's not how I've done it in the past, but that's okay with me. It's much clearer.
It's Robert's rules is when there's 3 motions proposed, you
Then
start
third-
with the
you can
third,
go-
you start with the third motion.
Go to
If
the second.
it fails, you go back to the second. And if that fails, you go to the original motion. But because that third motion did pass, that's the motion that goes
Okay,
forward.
good. Because I was thinking I couldn't do the second one amendment. So yeah. So then we're finished then.
Yes.
So it is that that's how it will be is the first choice is the shade structures and the second will be the cricket.
Right. And Commissioner and Chair Lopez Lucy, I have my hand up because I just want to make sure what I'm hearing is that, and I know Kathy's probably got this message that we want during the CIP project and during the next little while, please keep us informed of opportunities to pursue the cricket stuff, right? Because clearly, there's been a lot of support expressed tonight, and, whether it's, other city entities addressing it or what have you, it's obviously something we'd like to be kept on the radar screen and to have you inform us of ways that we can pursue it further. It may not be this particular grant funding, but I'd like to see what the possibilities are personally.
Okay. Thank you. I know that was a challenging one, but I really appreciate your feedback, getting that through, and the discussion is very, very helpful to staff in long term because we'll be able to use lots of this feedback as we move through many of these other projects. So thank you very much.
And thank you for giving me all this challenging here, commissioners. Very nice, hopefully. I've never handled it quite that way, but I'll go back and read my Roberts on the third one. That's new to me, but that's fine. So we've done that one. So we're through that one. And so now we're going to go ahead to item. Okay, so 8.1 and 8.2 is now our Art and Wind Festival scheduling alternatives. And that will be presented by Steve Cox, our recreation supervisor. So I bet he's patiently been waiting to be aboard, but Steve, proceed.
Yes, and actually I'm going to give you a couple of comments right as Steve is getting set up here. Although, there we go. I just wanted to say that that the right answer to our Wind Festival question, if it was easy and obvious, then we would have just made it and let you know why we did it. So if it was a simple answer and there was just not anything to any real big considerations, we knew it was clear, we would have done it. This year is far more complicated and has been a moving target for, in every scenario that we've got there has so many pros and cons to it. And with COVID, it's really difficult to know. I've got no crystal ball and I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. Staff felt it was important to bring it forward and get your feedback and direction. And I think it's really relatively important that staff and the commission are aligned on this, because we will get questions and we want to make sure that we are all proceeding together in the same direction. So today we're going to be talking about the Wind Festival. As you know, it is the largest event we do with over 40,000 people in attendance. I will say that we are still planning to have the 4th of July run and the concerts, as they are both smaller scale and can be adapted to operate within the safety guidelines. However, as we're talking, if you have thoughts on the runner concerts that you feel staff should consider, please feel free to bring them up. And with that, let's hand it over to Steve to kind of run you through all the different things and considerations we'd like you to look at.
Thank you, Kathy. And I'd like to thank Chairperson Lopez Lucy and the rest of the Parks and Community Services Commissioners for having me here tonight. My primary role here is that I am the lead staff in planning the Art and Wind Festival. And it brings me to presenting the 2021 Art and Wind Festival scheduling our alternatives that we came up with. Christy, if you could go to the next slide. And tonight, it is recommended the Parks and Community Services Commission receive the report on the scheduling alternatives for the 2021 Art and Wind Festival. And upon the conclusion of receiving the report, provide feedback and direction to staff in regards to the festival. Next slide, please. And I know many of you are familiar with the Art and Wind Festival. These are just a key few points, and there's more information in the staff report. But it was started as a street fair in 1989. And for the last 30 years, it had been able to take place continually until 2020, and when the COVID-19 pandemic forced us to cancel it. Prior to that, though, as Kathy mentioned, the average attendance we would see for the San Ramon community was 40,000 attendees over the 2 days of the festival. And, you know, the festival is unique to San Ramon, and it's a family-friendly celebration where people can gather, enjoy a variety of high-quality entertainment, food, children's activities, all at a reasonable cost. We provide the nonprofit food vendors an opportunity to promote their organization and fundraising, and provide an opportunity for business sponsors and nonprofit organizations to market their products and services and increase their visibility within the community. And we traditionally have 150 fine art vendors at the festival. We have an amusement area. And so it really takes over Central Park and really is the signature event for the city of San Ramon. Next slide, Christy. And as you know, due to COVID-19, the Parks and Community Services was forced to halt a majority of the operations that began in March of 2020. And as additional information was learned about COVID-19, we were able to incorporate some of those programs, including camps and childcare, back into our programs, with strict adherence to what the county health guidelines beginning were as of summer of 2020. However, large events such as the Art and Wind Festival and Run San Ramon were still prohibited in 2020. In response to the pandemic and in an effort to safely reopen activities to the public, the state of California developed its blueprint for a safer economy, which defined a 4-color tier system. And we did provide in the staff report that blueprint for a safer economy that does break down the criteria that the state right now has us operating, and does provide the 4-color tier system and what's allowed within that 4-color tier system. Currently, Contra Costa County still is in the purple tier, which is the most restrictive of the 4 tiers. And based on the current Contra Costa County designation of the purple tier, right now, outdoor live performances would be limited to 25 people from no more than 3 households. So you can see how restrictive that is. And the Art and Wind Festival can be offered once the state and county have completely exited the 4-color tier system. So what that is after it completely moves beyond the smallest tier right now under the criteria, tier yellow, which is the minimal tier, that would be when the Art and Wind Festival would be able to take place. Next slide, Christy. And I'm here to present the scheduling alternatives tonight. There's four options for consideration. I will first present pros and cons on each alternative, and then also present the budget implications to those alternatives. The 4 alternatives will be to continue with the festival on Memorial Day weekend, move the festival to the Labor Day weekend, cancel in-person festival and host a virtual festival, cancel the in-person festival, host a virtual festival, and offer in-person concerts if possible. Each option, as you'll see, has pros and cons, which will be outlined over the next few slides. Christy, if you can go to the next slide. Option 1, which was continue the festival on the Memorial Day weekend, which will be taking place the last weekend of May. In order for the festival to occur as currently scheduled, Contra Costa County will need to completely exit that 4-color tier system we mentioned from what it currently is, and that would have to move through the 4-tier system from the purple tier that we're currently in. Just to note, when looking at this, we did look at other festivals, and I'll mention those festivals later in the presentation, but festivals that somewhat locally took place over Memorial Day weekend, the Bottle Rock, Napa Valley, and the Morgan Hill Mushroom Mardi Gras festivals that traditionally did take place over Memorial Day weekend. We'll address those later on in the slides, but I wanted you to be aware that there are other festivals too that had to make decisions on how to proceed this year. If we did continue at the festival on Memorial Day weekend, some of the pros, though, would be that it would promote optimism in the community, provide a sense of return to normalcy. It would be fun for the community. It would be revenue generation for local nonprofits and exposure for city businesses. And the festival is symbolic beginning to a summer in San Ramon. Some of the cons, residents may see the city as being irresponsible, and it may provide negative public perception. Reduction in vendors, sponsors, and attractions, as many past participants are wary of applying to participate currently. Additional safety measures in place, reduced capacity, strict physical distancing measures, additional sanitation services, face mask requirements, additional signage would all be required. Additional costs for part-time staff and full-time staff. It may, and we don't know, but may not have exited the 4-color tier system by the festival day, and reduced attendance based on the max capacity of the outlined in the health restrictions. The public may still feel unsafe in large crowds. Next slide. So the budget implications here, as you can see, what our current budgeted expenditures were and the current revenue, that's in the first column. And then the revised expenditures would be to hold that if we were able to hold that this year, and then the revised revenue cost. And you see the revenue drops considerably. The expenditures will increase by about $11,000 based on the additional need for signage, safety measure requirements, and an increase in part-time and full-time staff to implement those requirements. Revenue will decrease based on the need to renegotiate vendor contracts in anticipation of reduced capacity and the reduction in sponsors and food vendors. The city would need to incur expenditures in March for some items such as kite kits and general supplies, an expenditure for items including brochures, maps, street signs. Booking of paid performances will need to be incurred in early April and would be unable to be saved if the festival was moved or canceled at a later date. If the city proceeds with option 1 and later decides to move to option 2 due due to health restrictions. This would present a greater burden on the planning of the event, the staffing of the event, and the overall cost associated with the event. Next slide, please, Christy. Option 2 then would be to move the festival to the Labor Day weekend at the beginning of September. The festival could be accommodated over Labor Day weekend. Memorial Day and Labor Day weekend have many similarities, which could afford staff the opportunity to host the festival without needing to change many of the aspects that are currently in place for the Memorial Day weekend. The Labor Day weekend is a 3-day weekend, which would also allow staff to reuse the current signage that indicates Sunday and Monday of the event. So that would be the same days that traditionally the event would fall on Memorial Day weekend. Primary vendors who collaborate with the city have indicated they could accommodate the Labor Day weekend if the festival was moved to the Labor Day weekend date. Some of the pros associated with option 2, more people would be vaccinated by then and a greater public confidence in attending a festival, fewer restrictions from the state and county health, normal volume of vendors and sponsors with greater overall confidence in attending the event. Festival branding of Sunday and Monday would remain the same. Large expenditure reductions in the current fiscal year of 2021 budget would promote optimism in the community, provide a sense of return to normalcy. It would be fun for the whole community, and revenue generation for local nonprofits and exposures for city businesses. There was also the cons. So 2 festivals in the same fiscal year within 9 months of one another would double the expenditures in 1 year. The likelihood for hot weather and wildfires may occur in September. If the pandemic does not improve, the festival may be canceled even after being moved to the September weekend. Need for additional part-time and full-time staff to support maintain state and county modifications. Some college students may have returned to school as well, leaving less part-time staff available for us to host the event in September. Realignment of staff resources to accommodate the September festival, which will result in 2 festivals in the 1 year. Potential precedent that the festival will be moved to the Labor Day weekend, not just for 1 year, but more years to come. It would conflict potentially with the culture in the community that is normally held during the middle of September, and the event would need to be moved or combined potentially. Approval for the Labor Day weekend festival should be included in the fiscal year, the 2021-22 city operating budget. Loss of continuity of the festival being offered on Memorial Day weekend, and the professional kite flyers may not be able to participate dependent on how windy it is during that weekend. Some of the budget implications, Christy, if you can go to the next slide, please. As you'll see that from our expenditures here, there's the 2021 expenditures, and then what it would happen in the 2021, it would reduce the expenditures in the current fiscal year and almost take revenue down, will take revenue down to 0. And then in the 2021-22 fiscal year, what is currently budgeted would now almost be doubled in the 21-22 revised expenditures there. So the revenue and expenditures would approximately double over that year and be nearly eliminated out of the current fiscal budget. There would be a little bit of expenditures there that you see, that's the $5,000. The moving of the festival to Labor Day weekend may require approval of the city council, as this will though have a significant budget implications overall. And the note there you see, so Bottle Rock Napa Valley is the example of the festival that has moved to the Labor Day weekend from the Memorial Day weekend. And that's a large music festival that takes place in Napa, and they traditionally have about 120,000 people over the course of the 3 days. And that's the example of one festival that took the approach of moving to Labor Day weekend. Christy, if you could move to option 3, please. Option 3 then is to cancel the in-person festival and host a complete virtual festival. Provided virtual festival available would be on our city website. City staff can work with the videographer, similar to what was done for the 2020 Culture in the Community when it moved to a virtual format for the year. We would provide a one-day drive-through event, which give away items such as kite kits, craft packets, coloring pages, pinwheels, city pens, and other items are provided in a swag bag. The primary vendors who collaborate with the city have indicated they will not participate in a virtual festival. If the festival is canceled, the in-person festival is canceled, staff will focus on appropriate early messaging in order to communicate with the community that the festival will return in person in 2022. And the pros and the cons of the virtual festival, little to no ill will or public sentiments due to holding the event. The public does understand the current health environment. Staff can notify the public and vendors now instead of waiting till the last moment. Staff can begin to start planning the 2022 festival and notifying the public that we will be back. Significant reduction to the current fiscal budget, and then there would be no increase or changes to the approved fiscal 21-22 budget. It would not compete with the Culture in the Community September. And then this would negate the cons from the option 2 that we previously mentioned. The cons, though, if the county and state progress quickly through the tier system, there would be no festival, even though it potentially may be allowed. Vendors and entertainment will not participate in the virtual aspect of the festival. The full 2 years will have passed before an in-person festival would be able to be held again in 2022, and no revenue generation for local nonprofits and exposure for city businesses would take place for the virtual festival. Christy, if you can move to option 4, please. Oh, sorry, option 3 is budget. As you see here in the budget, there will be some expenditures, but minor compared to what the overall event would traditionally cost. There would be no revenue. And that would be because it's all virtual. And the note there, the Morgan Hill Mushroom Mardi Gras is an example of the festival that takes place over Memorial Day weekend. They have about 80,000 people in attendance, and they did cancel their event that was to take place over the Memorial Day weekend. And those pictures are examples just of how we did manage the drive-in portion of the event last year. Now option 4, please, Christy. Next page. Thank you. And then the fourth option presented is to cancel the in-person part of the festival, continue to host a virtual component of the festival, and try to offer in-person concerts at the for the festival. So all aspects of the virtual festival, the swag bags as outlined in option 3, remain in effect. And if health restrictions are lifted, staff can explore options for outdoor concerts on that Memorial Day weekend. Modified in-person performances would be required to abide by state and county guidelines with proper physical distancing and creating social pods. Approximately 800 people could potentially attend each concert. 100 social pods with the maximum of 8 people per pod. Performance would need to be confirmed, and that's by the bands themselves, by April 16th in order for us to move forward with this particular option. Some of the pros and cons. The pros would be the reduction in the fiscal year budget and no increased expenditures in the 21-22 budget. Will not compete with Culture in the Community, which takes place in September. It would promote optimism in the community and options for the community to participate in the event. The cons would be the art vendors, the food vendors, and the sponsors will not be able to participate in the event. It would require registration for in-person entertainment, creating some exclusivity based on the allowed number of participants for the event. It may not be, we may not be out of the state tier system by the planned festival date for in-person performances, and it could potentially be canceled, and that's the in-person concert aspect. An unknown level of staff and participants who have been vaccinated, and uneasiness of being around large crowds at that time. And some residents may see the city as being irresponsible and negative public perception. And that is more to do with the in-person concert portion of it. And Christy, if you can move to the next slide for the budget. And here you'll see the budget implications if we move forward with option 4. The expenditures will drop considerably, but by having the in-person concert portion of the event, they're still higher than option 3. And then the main performances stage would be set up on Central Park Field 2 to allow the spectators to spread out across the large field. So it would not, it would be where the traditional primary stage is at the festival, and then it would allow us to utilize all of the field to accommodate those social pods we mentioned earlier. Christy, I believe that was the final slide. Yes. So thank you for listening to those different alternatives available for the Art and Wind Festival. And at this time, we're looking for your feedback.
Okay, thank you, Steve, for explaining all of those. Now, do we have any people waiting for public comment, Christy?
Yes. So anyone in the audience that is wishing to comment, please click the raise your hand button or *9 on your telephone to request to speak. We do have one person wanting to speak. And let me.
I will open the public comment.
Okay, one moment. And the person to speak is going to be Tony Vaquez. Tony, go ahead. Tony, can you hear us?
All right, how about now? Can you hear me?
Thank you.
All right, I had to click allow over here. I'll keep it real brief. Just know that as a performer, obviously we want to see people out and about, but I know that I've seen the few places that I've been at and been playing, people are just excited that something is happening. I think the option of either I think maybe May is a little soon, because we don't know what's happening. Labor Day would probably be ideal, as far as from the folks that I've talked to, the folks that I've seen do this. And it doesn't necessarily have to set a precedent. I mean, I guess it could, but it doesn't have to. But I know people are anxious to get out. People are anxious to be social. I know it'll be a challenge to, maintain the health restrictions and all of that. But coming from the folks that I've talked to, the folks that I've seen around, I think, if we could squeeze in option 1, great. But at least option 2 is the way to go. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Do we have any other
further speakers?
Pardon me?
We do not have any further speakers.
Okay, thank you. I will close public comment. And now if we have ideas and suggestions, please raise your hand. And so we can call on you. Commissioner Beerbaum? You're muted, Don.
Thank you, Chairwoman Lopez Lucy. One question I had, Steve, first of all, great job of pulling together the presentations. The pros and cons were really helpful. What would be the challenge of holding the culture in community and the Wind Festival over the Labor Day weekend? Has that been something that you guys have considered? I mean, you have 3 days to do it. I know it might be a big challenge, but just, setting it all up and just having it run all over one weekend.
Do you need help with that, Steve, or do you have?
Well, I can speak to the Art and Wind Festival planning portion. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of planning an event. And, you know, we do typically spend 6 months setting up our performances and the vendors and all aspects of that. And there's a whole almost separate team of staff who would plan culture in the community. It also has become a large event. So there would be dynamics there that I would say we'd have to review to see how these two events could come together. I probably would defer a little bit to Kathy in this regards, just how the two aspects of those two events would be able to take place on one weekend though.
I would answer that. I think if we did that, the events would have to be combined into one event. So the culture in the community would be a component of the Art and Wind Festival, just because logistically with the stages and the sound equipment and the confusion that the community would have by having a pile of event, they would be very difficult. So I think we would combine them if that was the case, or culture in the community would be moved to a different month, because 2 weeks after would be very logistically also challenging and difficult, especially that our staff are most impacted in the summertime. So that's all the planning time for both events.
So from a budgetary standpoint, though, would that save the city considerable funding?
I am trying to remember the budget for culture in the community. And it's a much smaller scale event, so it would save some money to combine culture of the community with the Wind Festival on Labor Day. It would be their budget that would be reduced.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Dorlick.
Thank you, Chair. Director Hyman, in the opening special announcements, am I correct that you stated that the summer concerts were planned and going to be held?
Mm-hmm. That is our plan, because we believe we can do them socially distanced. We also believe that there's a much greater likelihood that we'll have exited the 4-tier system by July. We don't know what'll happen. That could not be the case, but we feel like they're easier to operate, spread way apart, with chalk on the grass to designate and pre-registration.
And logistically and budget-wise, it's much easier and less expensive for staff and the city budget for those concerts.
Right, to run concerts than a festival. Yes, concerts are definitely just a simpler prospect, and you have less numbers. The Wind Festival attracts 40,000. A concert attracts between 1,000 to 2,000.
Yeah. And was it still planned to have the 4th of July event as usual, and that being one of the concerts, so there'd be 6 concerts as there has been the last couple of years?
That is correct. That's our hope, to do that we could do the 6 concerts and the run in some format.
Okay. Is there any consideration to adding 1 or 2 additional concerts so that it extends the summer season through the possibly 3rd or 4th week of August, and therefore approach the Labor Day weekend?
We have not discussed that. So that's definitely an idea that could be raised.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Roberts.
Thank you, Chair Lopez Lucy. So I thought I would just share some information that I was able to collect. And of course, we had our programs committee meeting last week. And there was a reason why I sort of held off on making any comments at our meeting, because I was still collecting public feedback from my local network. So I kind of went out and did some polling through social media. I sit on several boards, and so I was asking board members that live in San Ramon to just give me some feedback on these options that we have, just because this is such an important, our biggest and most important event of the year. And of course I didn't include that 4th option. So So that one wasn't there. That's a new option that we did not necessarily discuss at our committee meeting. So keep that in mind. But I'm still getting a lot of feedback still, but I'll let you know that out of 49, I did get 49 comments from residents of San Ramon. Roughly half were from our 55 plus community. 73%, roughly 73%, basically commented that they would like to see at least a postponement till Labor Day, with several requests of those people saying that, you know, why don't you partner with culture in the community? So that one was a very common response, that they would like to see those two events, you know, combined if possible. 23% of the respondents basically said continue as planned. So there are obviously, you know, some people out there that would just love to get out and do it as planned on Memorial Day weekend. And then of course the remainder was roughly 4% said cancel. I won't go to it no matter when you hold it this year, just because I don't feel safe. So that was a very small percentage. But and I'm still getting more feedback. I still get calls. I'm still getting emails from people weighing in on this. And I just felt like it was important to do. And I just wanted to share that with all of you as you're thinking about these options. And I'm just going to kind of leave it at that and see where we all think about this.
We have other comments? Yes, Commissioner Heidi Constantine Lee.
Okay, thank you, Chair Lopez Lucy. I think one of the things we talked about in the program committee meeting is all of us would love nothing better than to be able to have that signal of things getting back to normal, than to have that Art and Wind Festival. And in my mind, it's not from a logistics perspective, a health and safety perspective. It's just not the responsible thing to do. From a budgetary perspective, it's not necessarily the appropriate thing to do. I think if ever there was a time where there's going to be where cancellation would be not unexpected, and where there would be a tolerance level for us canceling, now's the time. I think people now have been through this pandemic long enough. They know that these things are going to happen. I do feel there's a lot of investment in the Memorial Weekend timing. I'm concerned about competing with the Culture in the Community event. There was a lot of effort and investment of time and strategy in finding that particular date. I'm not terribly excited about the option of having two Art and Wind festivals 9 months apart from each other. I probably should have prefaced it by saying I'm gravitating toward option number 4 personally. You know, we have to be sort of sensitive to our staff time and what's realistic for them to do. I feel like combining the events, I have a little bit of a concern about that would be detract from both events. Like they wouldn't get their full impact. I'm concerned about vendor uncertainty. I think on some level we would be, if we were to move forward with it, we'd see a lot of effort that would end up being wasted in the long run, and it would be a bit of a logistical nightmare. What I like about option number 4 is the fact that I like that it would be, what I've suggested, in fact, in our committee meeting, is we could do an enhanced virtual event. You know, we are showing a virtual event involving a very small portion of the budget that would be allocated. Maybe we increase that. Maybe we come up with some more creative ideas of how we can have a more robust virtual event. That would be one thought I would have. Also, I feel like the in-person concert for that could be a good, early signal of optimism that we're getting there, but we're not doing something, foolish. I also feel like we could, you guys, I think staff talk about it as early messaging. I think, as I mentioned in the program committee meeting, we need to come up with some really catchy branding for this event and really hit it early, where we're going to, say, hey, we're not able to do it now. It just doesn't make sense on a lot of different levels, but here's the early branding on the 2022 event and get people excited about it. I think that could combat that sort of, we all feel that little bit of depression of, gosh, when is this going to end? But it gives us something to look forward to and to kind of embrace. So my tendency at this point, and of course we all come in with feelings of what we want to see happen, but I do want to hear from the rest of the commissioners. I mean, everybody wants to see it move forward, right? But I do think that there are enough concerns about combining and about postponing that I don't know that the September timeframe works for this event. That's where I'm at.
Thank you. Vice Chair Oslin, do you have any comments?
I do. I also sat on the program committee with Heidi and Scott, and thank you very much, staff and Steve, for your presentation, but also for adding our recommendation to consider the in-person concerts. I'm really leaning toward option 3, to have something that we do for the children, for the community, but on a much more subdued, lower scale. I think that concerts, it's too early. I think May is going to come up on us very quickly. I believe that, having even 800 people in these pods, the band members have to be vaccinated. I mean, there's like a lot of issues and details around that. And I feel like it might be more problematic or trouble to pull it together than to just bite the bullet this year, and we'll just try to do what we can to keep it alive. And as Commissioner Keniston Lee is suggesting, to really use this time to brand it so that next year we do it up big and we really put the energy into that. So that's kind of, to me, the whole purpose of this is to fly your kites, it's to eat good food, it's to ride the rides, have fun, look at the art, be with your friends, be out. And if we can't do that, then I just feel like it's just not worth putting any other energy into it. I personally don't like moving it to Labor Day. I don't want to, I certainly want everyone to, if that's what it comes to, we'll do it. But I feel that the weather is too warm. We don't have the wind. We can't fly our kites. It's just, we might have wildfires at that time. It's so hot. I just feel like it's just not when you have your Art and Wind Festival, personally. Yep. So that's just my feedback. I'd like to hear a conclusion from the group. And I just think option 3 is probably our best decision.
Thank you. I'd like to hear from Student Commissioner Ramesh.
Yeah, so I'm honestly not really sure from the youth perspective which would work, but I would say that Labor Day would definitely have reduced attendance in general, because like the school year has already been started. We start school here in early August, so it would be a month into the school year. And I definitely think that would, usually the Art and Wind Festival is sort of the start of summer. A lot of people are going out, but holding it in the middle of the school year would definitely decrease the amount of people participating. But I think if we do go with option 4, that seems like it's more catered towards families. Again, I don't know whether the health guidelines by early September would allow for option 4 to happen, but I definitely think that option 3 or 4 would be the most practical.
Thank you. And Commissioner Heidi Ellicott Hesse, would you please give your comments?
Thank you so much, Commissioner Lopez Lucy. I just, this particular topic has not been top of mind specifically until very recently in terms of the Art and Wind Festival, but I certainly has been something important to my family and our community. But we've been having conversations in other arenas talking about what does next year look like for a lot of folks. And one of the things I've been, counseling some of our organizations is we need to kind of strip it down and rethink what is our main goal and priority. And right now for me, besides health and safety, The other thing that's really, really important is keeping connection in and with our community. And so, you know, the Art and Wind Festival is an iconic trademark San Ramon festival, but I think May is too soon. I'm just like, bottom line, I just do not see that happening. And I don't want to set us up for failure. The other thing I would say is whatever we do, let's do it really well. We don't have to do everything, but that which we, you know, embark on, let's do our very best. And, you know, sometimes we'll have to pivot, but let's try and do that. I initially liked the idea of the Labor Day weekend. I thought that was a really nice idea, but then I started thinking all the times I've had to deal with different organizations, and the fire season in particular and the heat was of concern. And that just didn't, that to me is almost a non-starter, because we've had too many times to have to worry and cancel over fire season, unfortunately. I wasn't as concerned because I hoped that with the culture in the community, we could find a way to combine the events, not run two separate events, but take, you know, invite the best of culture in the community and keep what we thought we could of Art and Wind and create a hybrid one for the 1 year. That was appealing. But again, the fire season, the heat, you know, I don't think that's the right thing. So what I would kind of lean toward number 4, and the reason I would is that I go back to keep connection in and with the community. So what I would like to look at are smaller opportunities where we can be successful when it's safe to do so. So I love the idea of the concerts when it's safe and appropriate, and allowing people to find ways of connecting, being outdoors in smaller groups, outdoor movies, whatever it is you guys have in mind. I would rather have you think about what are ways we can bring our community together in smaller groups and keep them still grounded in our community. We have, you know, kind of an issue of people feeling disconnected. People are moving out, people are pulling kids out of school and going to private school. If anything, I'd like to find little wins where we can draw the community back together. And so I love that idea. Will you be able to do them? I don't know because of the health and safety, but that's what I would like to ask, is for you to look for small things that the staff has the bandwidth and the ability and the budget to do, and that have those little wins. I would add that with respect to culture in the community, if that is able to go forward and we do have an opportunity, and again, I would look to the staff for this, are there ways that we can tweak culture in the community to make it larger and more appealing this 1 year only, to bring maybe not the kites in the wind, but are there things that we can do to make it this year's showcase festival, assuming it's healthy and safe and and you know, there's bandwidth. And I know that takes a lot of planning, but just something to think about. And then the other thing that I have been speaking with people about is this situation has definitely been difficult, COVID and the pandemic and everything we've had to deal with, but it's also been an opportunity to kind of rethink maybe sometimes, and I'm not suggesting we step away from the Art and Wind Festival at all, please don't misunderstand, but I think sometimes we're stripping it down, like I said in the beginning, what are we really here for? And then it's an opportunity as we rebuild what we do, let's stop and think, are we doing this just because we've always done it? Like an element, not the festival. Or do we want to rethink it because this is an opportunity? It will have been potentially 2 years since we did it. Are there tweaks that we want to make and rebrand it, or create or add an element or tweak an element, or think about how to get more community involvement? I don't know. I don't have any advice or opinions on that aspect, but I just think the idea of taking advantage of the change that has been thrust upon us to consider whether there are things that we might do differently and improve. So yeah, I would vote toward 4 because I really like to see us still do some community engagement. In terms of a virtual Art and Wind Festival, I can't get my head around exactly what that would look like. And I would defer to staff on how much energy to put into that versus, you know, a smaller virtual event with more individual, smaller, easier wins to bring community together, if that makes sense. But I would defer to your expertise on that.
Thank you. Well, I thought a lot about this too. And also I would have to agree with what Heidi said. I just don't feel that the community would be welcoming to come back in May. I just think it's a little bit too soon. And I think it's been slow of Contra Costa getting out of the purple area, because we're not even to the red area yet, and who knows how fast it will go. But I just don't think that we would get enough. I think it would be limiting, because I didn't think a lot of people wouldn't come, and I think a lot of vendors probably would be adverse to or coming also. And we've had so many things in person, virtual. Everything we're doing is virtual. I guess I would lean to number 4, except my question is, how do we assure that we're only going to have so many people at this concert or these concerts? How, I'd have to ask staff, how would you, I mean, even if you take reservations, how can you eliminate people just walking in and seeing a concert or something and just sitting down and whatever? How would you regulate that? I guess I would ask Kathy or Steve, whichever one.
Yes, and this lends us as we've also looked towards moving towards summer concerts. But in the tiers, we would have to create advanced reservations. So people would have to essentially reserve a space. We would assign our social pods, identifying numbers that people would be able to reserve, likely through online reservation. And then we would have to cordon off an area with some kind of crowd control, maybe rope or something, but something that would be able to allow us to maintain an area and also maintain entry and exiting of participants.
So are you planning to have one concert or how many?
In looking at the format for the Art and Wind Festival, we were looking at essentially 4 concerts. One as more traditional to the way we would hold the concerts at the actual festival. So there would be an early concert. We would have to provide longer amounts of time to have people exit the area, and then make sure, you know, we take all the precautions before allowing people to come in for a second concert. So there might be an hour or an hour and a half break between the 2 concerts. And then we would look at potentially doing that, if allowed, both the Sunday and the Monday of the Memorial Day weekend. So essentially it could add up to 4 concerts.
Okay, thank you. And I think it would shortchange if we have the cultural and the art at the same time. I think each would not get their due process and the things that they would do. So I think that would present a complication of both the art and the culture. And I'd like to see them have their own culture in the park, and you know, just so that it wouldn't take away from them. So I guess, you know, hearing everything, I just have thought about this a lot, having been active in the the Art and Festival. And so I guess I would have to lean through to number 4, if for certain that you can limit the people that you're getting and not having walk-ups that would interrupt or whatever. That would be my main concern, because I know in the fireworks, wherever we had some of these issues also of overcrowding and everything. So that stays in the back of my mind. So I guess I would lean towards number 4, but we would need to have a motion. Yes, Vice Chair Oslin.
Point of clarification, Steve. The one I read as option 4 was to have 4 concerts on Memorial Weekend, correct?
That's the way I understand it, correct?
And so I just want to let you guys know, my husband is in a band and they're not playing together. They're doing everything virtually right now. So they have to be vaccinated before they can get back together. So there's that piece too about finding the musicians to consider if we limit it to Memorial Weekend. So I'm kind of hearing some ideas bubbling up. Maybe we could consider doing more concerts in the summer, a little bit later could be an option. So just wanted to, put that out there and make sure everyone understood that this is Memorial Weekend that we're talking about for concerts.
It's true. Thank you. Any other comments, or someone want to bring forth a motion?
Looks like Commissioner Roberts has his hand raised.
Okay, all right, I didn't see that. Yes.
Yeah. So, listening to everybody, I mean, obviously this is a very, very difficult topic, but I would have to agree also with Commissioner Heidi Ellicott-Pesic, just in terms of the idea that we would be looking at giving residents something to look forward to as an option. I think that, and another reason is that we didn't have option 4 when we had our programs committee meeting. So this is kind of that new option that I think could make sense. However, as Commissioner Osland stated, it could be difficult to have those those concerts in or as early as May. So obviously, if we're talking about pushing everything out of May off, option 4, then almost kind of doesn't make sense, because nothing will happen in during that time if we're really trying to push it. So could there be a situation to where we can take those concerts and do sort of let's see what the county is, where we are, and push those concerts if need be a little bit later. I don't know how that would impact the schedule for the rest of the year, but I'm just really seeing, based on a lot of the feedback that I'm getting from the community, it just seems like people are stuck and they really, really want something to look forward to. And if there's something that we can do, whether we push it out as far as Labor Day or earlier, then I hope that we could look at something like that as an option. So that's option 4, but maybe push the concerts out if possible, if that's an option. I don't know what the financial impact of that is, what the fiscal impact is that that would be, but if we can look at that as an option, just so that we can feel that we're doing something for the community, because obviously I mean, the most common response I'm getting is, and this is from the 55 plus, this is from our senior community, who feel that they are they've been stuck in their homes and they would really like to get out and do something, and this would be that thing. So that event. So that's kind of where I stand on this.
If I might throw something out, because I think I do hear some different thoughts from the commission. If you end up making the decision that we want to go more towards an option 4, we don't have to define it strictly as concerts, because we can just define it as an enhanced something you could do. Because, for example, we could do movies in the park where you remove the band, you still have the same registration, you can have smaller numbers. There are other communities doing movies in the park currently, small numbers. But I think staff could be creative and find something. It doesn't have to be the concert. So maybe if that helps you at all.
Kathy, that's the clarification that honestly I was looking for. And so thank you for that. I think that helps a lot, actually.
Okay, I have 2 people here. Commissioner Beerbaum.
Well, I have to say, I came into this discussion feeling like Labor Day would be the ideal place to move it. I am definitely a no-go for anything over Memorial Day. It's just too soon. It's too speculative. Who knows what's going to happen? The regulations change daily. So, I mean, for us to put the city and staff and the public through some kind of expectation for Memorial Day, I think is just wrong. I do agree with Commissioner Roberts and in general, everybody else, that we do need to find activities that are with the community that they can participate in and participate safely. So Kathy, I like what you're saying as far as, you know, idea number 4, kind of modified, figure it out. And I also think that we ought to make a decision tonight to cancel the Wind Festival and then put the effort against something else, because as long as it's hanging out there, people are going to be wondering. So like some of the other communities that have stepped forward and just said, you know, we're going to cancel it. We're going to put our effort against, you know, the next year. I think that is a better direction, you know, and I appreciate all the other commissioners' comments, because it helped me move from where I was to where I am now.
Thank you. And Commissioner Heidenson-Lee, please.
And Commissioner Birnbaum, that's the beauty of the process, right? You have all these things that come in and it all becomes distilled. So yes, Kathy, I love the idea that, and we are so lucky to have staff that can adapt. So, but I'm thinking, you know, even if, you know, the situation is right that we could do concerts, I don't know why we'd necessarily have to do 4 of them. Like if we just chose to do one on Sunday and one on Monday, I think that we need to be open to scaling back a little bit. But, you know, I like the idea of trusting staff, knowing the spirit of what everybody is communicating, you know, figuring out what makes sense for everybody concerned. So I am prepared to make a motion, Chair Lopez-Lucy, if you would like to hear one.
I would like to, Commissioner Dorlick, do you have some further comments, or were you going to make a motion also?
Oh, no, heck no. I just wanted to reiterate what Kathy had said, what Director Hyman had said. The city of Pleasanton utilized the Alameda County Fairgrounds all of last year for a variety of drive-in movie events, drive-in concert events on the big screens. And they were very successful, had a very good turnout to those. So everybody stayed in their cars and, you know, et cetera, but it was a, you know, way to bring people together and to bring community together and have that connection. So there have been other ideas similar to that have been executed in cities in the area. So, but that's just one good example of kind of thinking outside the box and in the trunk.
Okay, thank you. And if there's no further comments, yes, I'll entertain a motion from you. Heidi, please.
Let me make sure I'm unmuted. Okay, I move that we cancel the 2021 in-person Art and Wind Festival, that we move forward with hosting a virtual event, and that we offer some sort of in-person programming to be determined by staff.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Any further comments on the motion?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Commissioner Dorlick.
Could I suggest that we use the terminology postpone rather than cancel? Postpone has the implication that we're just putting it off for this year, but it is certainly going to be back the following year.
Are you with that, Heidi?
Except that within the framework of the 4 options, postpone was used in the context of holding it in September. So I would actually like discussion from other folks as to their feelings about it.
Well, we're saying we're going to postpone it till next May. That's all. It's
or we're canceling the 2021 festival. And I mean, I think that staff can market it appropriately with the, you know, plans to come back in 2022, but we are canceling the 2021.
We are indeed.
Festival. And
Yeah.
if we say postpone, it really, if we're not clear about when it is next, I think that leaves it a little uncomfortable.
Your point is well taken, Commissioner Dorlick. I totally get what you're saying. Technically, I think I would adhere to cancellation.
Okay. All right. If there any further discussion on the motion? All right. Our secretary, please take roll call.
Commissioner Dorlick,
Yes.
Commissioner Keniston Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Birnbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts,
Aye.
Commissioner Ella Pesic,
Aye.
Vice Chair Osland,
Aye.
Chair Lopez Lucy.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, therefore, I think you have your direction. And thank you for Steve for all your efforts. And I know Becky was here and I see Adams maybe was here also, but thank you all for bringing us all this information, and hopefully this will give you some direction, and we thank you for all your work.
It does. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the whole Parks Commission for participating in that.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Lopez Lucy, may I please request just a couple minute bio break? Would that be all right?
That would be perfectly fine. I have, if we are back here about no later than 5 of 10, I guess, that would be.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Break will be at 9:47.
Yeah, I'm gonna stand. I've been sitting since 4 o'clock.
We are still live on YouTube, just be aware.
Yes. Okay, we need a couple more.
So Carol, whenever you're ready.
I think we'll reconvene at this time because we need to move along because we still have quite a few things to cover.
Great, you're starting back at 9:54.
Thank you. Our next agenda item will be 8.3, our San Ramon Library Public Art Project for the artist selection. And that will be presented by Adam Chow, our Recreation Supervisor. So Adam, thank you for waiting in the wings for a while, and it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Chair Lopez Lucy. It's always a pleasure to be here. Good evening, Commissioners. I have the pleasure to be able to present tonight in regards to our library public art project. Public art is a cherished treasure that we have in San Ramon with approximately 60 pieces throughout the community. We have the opportunity to be able to add pieces generally every couple years. It's been a few years since we've had a piece. This location at the library has been approved since 2017, but we're happy to be able to move on with this project, to be able to start moving forward with other projects that we have in the wings as well. So the library site was, as I mentioned, decided in 2017. We put out a request for qualifications for artists back in September. We received 15 applications back, 15 RFQs back for this project. In December, the Arts Advisory Committee reviewed those 15 applications and narrowed the list down to 7. Those 7 applications were reviewed by the Visual Arts Subcommittee in January, and the Visual Arts Subcommittee interviewed, scored, and ranked all 7 artists. The recommended artist for this project is Wow House, who consists of Annie Osterhaus Constable and Scott Constable. We like Wow House, or the Arts Advisory Committee recommended Wow House because they appreciated the design aesthetics. They were approachable, and they were also very community driven as well. Their design aesthetics are timeless, which aids in the longevity of the piece that we're replacing. They were very willing to work with us and our community to be able to get extensive community input, engagement, collaboration in the design phase. And I think that was really one of the big key components of what we saw, is that they really wanted to engage our community, hear from the different stakeholders before they're creating their design options. They have the ability to work in different mediums. If you reviewed the staff report, you saw that they didn't work in just one medium. They had several different options, which provides other options for us as they come up with designs to make it creative, unique, and appropriate for the space. In addition, they have over 2 decades of public art experience working with municipalities, and they will be able to get the job done, including all aspects of the project. So we are recommending that Wow House be approved as the artist for the San Ramon Public Art Project, and look forward to working with them with your approval.
All right. Do we have any comments from the staff? I guess I first should say, do we have any speakers on this area for public comment?
No, we do not have any public comment today.
Okay, thank you. So, anyone have any ideas or a motion to bring before us? Commissioner Dorlick?
Yeah, I just wanted to state that the subcommittee for the Arts Advisory Committee really did a great job in evaluating and bringing the final 3 selections to the Arts Advisory Committee, and there was very substantive conversations and discussions regarding those last 3 finalists. So I would certainly heartily recommend that the Commission accept the recommendation of the Arts Advisory Committee, and so the project can move forward in a timely manner.
Second.
Who seconded it, please? Was it? Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All right, we will have a vote.
Commissioner Dorlick,
Yes.
Commissioner Keniston Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Birnbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellicott Pesic,
Aye.
Vice Chair Oslin,
Aye.
Chair Lopez.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion is carried. And I think the things that you had shown that what they did was a very good selection. And so thank you for the Arts Committee for their perseverance in selecting a good artist. So, and thank you. So relay our thanks to them, please. Okay, moved right along there. All right, we have next 8.3. We did that, pardon me, 8.3 we just did. 8.4 is the Library Advisory Committee recommendations, and that will be presented by Kathy Hyman, our director. Kathy?
Yes, and so we're going to have 3 of these appointments in a row. So what I think would be the smart thing to do is just let me kind of cover the basics of what happened here, and then we can go one by one through each of them individually. So basically, as you know, every year we have a certain number of terms that come up on all of our advisory committees, and it is the commission's job to interview the candidates. A lot of them were returning, a lot of them were new. We had many applicants in all of our areas, and so it certainly made for an interesting interview process. We have the commissioners here who interviewed. And so as we're looking at the first one, which is the Library Advisory Committee, they are recommending Rocio Fierro Ross, Rita Chakrabarty, and Kyle Graham Levy to serve as regular members on the Library Advisory Committee with terms to expire in March of 2023, and Dinesh Gavandaro to serve as alternate 1 with a term to expire March of 2023. Is there any further things that the committee who interviewed would like to add?
Do you want us to vote on each one to recommend to the city council?
Yes. So if you're good with that, then you need to make a motion and a second and a vote.
Okay.
I move that we accept the recommendations of the interview process and move it on to the city council.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we, have for the Library Advisory Commission, and we will have a vote, please. You're muted.
You're still muted.
Still muted, Christy.
Heidi got brought back to attendee, so I just brought her back in. Let me take a roll call now.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorlick,
Yes.
Commissioner Keniston Lee. You're muted.
Aye.
Commissioner Birnbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellicott Pesic.
Just say Ellicott.
Ellicott.
Aye. Take it easy.
Vice Chair Oslin,
Aye.
Chair Lopez Lucy.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, if it's fine with you, we'll move on to the Arts Advisory Committee.
Please.
Okay, the Arts Advisory Committee also had several applicants, and the recommended applicants would be Partha Mitra, Nani Shastri, Patrick Gutierrez, and Magali Ledbudur to serve until March of 2023 in regular positions, and Gayatri Subramanian to serve in an alternate position till March of 2023.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the Arts Advisory Committee recommendations. Madam Secretary, roll call again, please.
Commissioner Dorlick,
Yes.
Commissioner Keniston Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Birnbaum,
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts,
Commissioner Roberts,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellicott,
Aye.
Vice Chair Oslin,
Aye.
Chair Lopez Lucy.
aye.
Thank you.
All right, and then we'll move on to the last committee, which is the Senior Advisory Committee. And for this committee, it is recommended that Susan Chen, Colette Clark, and Poran Lind be appointed to serve as regular members through March of 2023.
All right.
So
do we- A second, please.
Second.
All right, we'll vote on the motion. Again, roll call, please.
Commissioner Dorlick,
yes.
Commissioner Keniston Leaf,
Aye.
Commissioner Birnbaum.
Commissioner Bobaum, are you voting?
I didn't hear anything. Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellicott,
Aye.
Vice Chair Osland,
Aye.
and Chair Lopez Lucy.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, that went very well. So now we're going to go to the staff reports. 9.1 Recreation Program and Community Services Report. Does anyone have any comments about issues and that Recreation Program and Community Service Report?
Hang on. Wait.
Okay, hearing none. We
Oh,
will move-
Commissioner, I'm sorry, Chair
Yes.
Lopez Lucy, I am not quick enough on the draw here. I just wanted to say, so you asked for comments on 9.1, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The farm exploration kits, I love that idea. That is awesome. That's what we asked you guys to do, is think outside the box. I just want to give big pat on the back kudos for that one. That's brilliant. That's good.
I'll pass
It's all
that on to
good.
Jessica.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair Lopez Lucy, for letting me say that.
Well, of course, we're all here to do our comments, and I didn't want to move too fast, but I didn't see anybody's hands up or anything. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great report, many things that go on there that it's very good. So we'll go to number 9.2, Maintenance and Operations Report. Lots of digging I see here that we did. When I was walking the other day, I was by two maintenance people on my street and I said, "Oh my land, what are you doing here?" And they were looking at the trees for the damage that they had done on the curbs and the sidewalk.
Mhm.
So
Roots.
I do know they're out there all over the place.
They do a great job.
They do. All right, if there's any comments on that, we shall move on. And we have updates for the city council.
That's me. Okay, so we last met on February 10th. There have been many exciting city council meetings since that time that I have enjoyed and learned a lot from watching. The meeting on February 11th, as you may know, city council denied the appeal regarding the Costco gas station and approved the development plan. The meeting on the 16th, where they conducted EDAC interviews and selected 4 folks, 1 alternate and a business representative. In the interest of time, I won't give you all the names. You can look those up if you like. On the 22nd of February, they had the magical Parks and Community Services Commission interviews, which gifted you now 2 Heidis on the Parks Commission. And so the interesting thing about that was I didn't realize City Council had the option to extend Heidi's term. Normally she would be there just 4 months to finish up the term, but she actually has been appointed for 4 years and 4 months. So we get her for a longer period of time. So that's good. There was a special meeting held between City Council and the Planning Commission on February 23rd to discuss RENA, which is the Regional Housing Needs Allocation process. As you may know, previous RENA cycle was 2015 to 2023. The upcoming RENA cycle, during that cycle, we were allocated 1,417 units to help with the housing crisis. Coming up, it's been the draft methodology has left us with 5,111 units to provide for. A lot of which, there are things going on that could cover some of that. But there's a whole timeline of a process where You can appeal, they reconsider, they issue final numbers. And so it was actually, if you're ever interested in housing and how that works, look at that City Council Planning Commission special agenda on the 23rd of February, because it really is amazing. It talks about how housing works and how RENA works. It will all be part of a plan to, they're going to incorporate this whole process into an update on the general plan and the housing element. So those will be some things that we can look at. And then I believe there's also a study session on a development in Bishop Ranch 6 that went quite well for the presenters. I think the feedback they got was pretty good. There was no action, but they did give, the applicant gave a presentation on what they have in mind. So if you're interested in that, take a look. Then they received the Library Advisory Committee annual report, the Transportation Advisory Committee report, and then also a very interesting report from the Contra Contra, the Transportation Authority, that Lisa Bobadilla always refers to as the authority. They were talking about the Transportation Mobility on Demand demonstration project, which involves an application that basically manages trip management. So if you got to go from point A to point B, sort of, you could go on a bus part of the way, then grab a bike part of the way, and it's sort of a very interesting process. So if you're interested in that, that's February 23rd. And then the last meeting was last night. Thank you for bearing with me with all these meetings. The San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District gave an update on their vaccine distribution efforts. They, as you may know, are working with the county and taking a very active, and from what I can tell, a very successful role in helping to provide vaccines, not only locally, but countywide. And apparently they're doing an amazing job. So in fact, 70% of the vaccines they've delivered have been outside of the San Ramon Valley. So Chief Meyer gave a very good update on what they're doing in that regard. They do it through mobile vaccines and drive-through clinics. So many of you probably already know that. They accepted a proclamation declaring March 2021 American Red Cross Month, which is awesome. And also, it was very exciting to find out that the Public Works project called Continuous Green Project along Bollinger Canyon, you know how they put up the partitions to get you on to 680 South faster? They actually, the Public Works Department got an award for that, and it's called Continuous Green. And what that, when we think of green in parks, we think of trees, right? But what it means is continuous flow green of getting onto the freeway. So they received an award from that, from the American Public Works Association. So that was exciting. And then they appointed Transportation Advisory Committee appointments. Transportation Demand Management Advisory Committee appointments were made. And then they also, more relevant to us, they did authorize the resolution for the mid-year budget. The bottom line, the basic summary on that is obviously our revenue is down. You know, a lot of our charging for services that we experience here in the Parks and Community Service Department, that's obviously been taking a big hit. But general fund expenditures have also gone down, so we're not getting hit quite as hard as we think we would. But this is just a general mid-year review of where we're at with the budget. We have had to dip into reserve slightly, but we still maintain a healthy reserve. And so that's good. So again, if you're interested in it, you can always find this stuff obviously online, and the packets are very thick, but very comprehensive. So that is what our city council is up to lately. That is all.
Thank you, Heidi, very much. I'm one of those who got my shot by the fire department.
Did you?
Two shots, yes, at the garage, and they were very, very well organized.
That's what they were saying. They said it's just everybody's commenting on it, what a smooth process it is. And the neat thing is that, you know, the fire protection district is really taking a lead on this, and they're not saying, oh, you know, we've done what we're supposed to do. They're like, give us more. We want to be part of the solution of getting the vaccines out as quickly as possible. So it's something that I think in our area, we should be very proud that we have this organization locally.
They're doing a great job. You didn't even know when you got the shot. That's how good they are. Okay. And so we're going to go on to committee reports, and I guess I'll just look up at the top here. Vice Chair Osland, you have a report?
Yes, I do. I serve on the Teen Council, and I'll let Student Commissioner Ramesh give the full report. But Kathy did announce that on March 20th, the Parks Make Life Better is going to be cleaning up Crow Canyon Gardens. And one of the things that the Teen Council discussed last meeting was Leave No Trace organization is going to be doing a trail cleanup. So we're going to have some nice clean trails, and Crow Canyon Gardens will be nice and clean too. So that's all I have to report. The Library Advisory Committee did not meet.
Thank you. Commissioner Beerbaum?
So the Open Space Committee met on Monday. We had a very interesting presentation from former Councilman Phil Alone. He took us through the history of the Open Space Advisory Committee. He was a very instrumental person in bringing the committee back, and it was very interesting. If you have a desire to understand the history behind the Open Space Committee, you might want to listen to his presentation. We also talked about putting together a Open Space Advisory Committee new member 101 because we added a new member, and so we put together a basic list of here are the things you need to learn to be an effective member of the committee. And then finally, Kathy is guiding us through the process of putting together the annual report and putting together the goals for next year. And it's she's done a masterful job, but it's a work in progress.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Roberts?
Thanks, Chair Lopez-Lucy. I'll be giving a quick report on the Senior Advisory Committee. So as part of the approved 2020-2021 goals, I have two updates that were provided on that. Number one was staff asked the committee to provide feedback on a survey that will be sent out to the San Ramon senior community to provide input on new virtual program offerings. Basically, the idea is to expand virtual program offerings, which includes gaining a better understanding of the technical abilities of the senior community to take these virtual programs. So essentially, with all the technology, gaining that feedback on if they were able to do it successfully, essentially. And then the second one was due to COVID-19 and the closure of the senior center, the on-site suggestion box has been unavailable to the public. So staff are exploring sending a monthly informational email to all previous participants of the center, and would like to include basically a virtual suggestion box link, which is essentially an electronic survey that will have the same questions as it did on the original version of that survey. So that is what is happening in terms of the goals. And then lastly here, the February senior meals. Steve Cox mentioned that February marks the 11th, marks 11 months, basically, that the senior center has provided weekly meals to seniors in San Ramon. It looks like 3,080 meals were provided in February for a total of 33,543 meals since the start of the pandemic. So I thought that was pretty amazing. And that's it for me.
Thank you. That is amazing that we've kept that up superbly.
Yeah, right.
Commissioner Dorlick?
Thank you, Chair Lopez-Lucy. And speaking of two shots, I'm seriously considering that after this meeting. So I want to talk about the Arts Advisory Committee. You got to have some fun. So the two,
we love you, Commissioner Dorlick. We love you. Go ahead.
We might all join you.
Well, and speaking of that, I got my second shot on Tuesday from Contra Costa Public Health. So got it. P squared. So there were two major items at the Arts Advisory Committee meeting last meeting. A great presentation from Ceremon's Poet Laureate, Janeth Jo Gerhardt Etchen. Really fantastic ideas. She's bringing the literary arts to the forefront. Performing arts and the visual arts have always been, much more heavily emphasized and in evidence. And the literary arts are really taking a great place within San Ramon. Obviously, she's going to be producing some poems and some work for events that are coming up or potentially coming up. The other thing is that World Poetry Day is on March 21st. It was declared by UNESCO in 1999, and she has implemented a poetry video project that submissions are available right now. And it's not necessarily just original poetry, but a presentation of favorite poems as well. So those are being submitted. And if I don't know if Adam is still on the call, he could probably tell you where you can submit, but I'm sure it's on the city website. And then she also has plans to host a community poetry workshop in the fall, which is great because for many years, the City of Pleasanton Poet Laureate had a workshop and invited people from all over the state, including the state poet laureate. So, we're taking the initiative on hosting that poetry workshop, and there's no firm date yet, but it is scheduled for the fall. And then the second exciting project, I'm just scrolling down here. It was 3 weeks ago. It's tough to remember. But Erica is heading this up. It's an election sign temporary art public project. So all those needless signs that we have during election years that pop up all in the most inappropriate and unbeautifying way around the city. Many of those have been donated. I think there's 150 that have been donated, with perhaps 75 more on their way. And they're being utilized for students and artists to create projects on those signs. And then they're going to be situated around the city. And it's anybody 13 years and up. And, it's just the same form factor as one of the election signs. But they're going to be located next to the San Ramon Trails, San Ramon Parks, Forest Home Farms, and also introduced during some special events if we do have special events. So it could be anywhere from about 150 to 225 original art, signs. They're about 24 by 24 or maybe 18 by 24. So a great way to utilize and in a sustainable and green way, kind of repurpose those election signs. So those are two really important and interesting items that were on the agenda at the Arts Advisory Committee meeting last month. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. And our student commissioner, Ms. Ramesh.
Thank you. So one thing that we're continuing is the ADAPT partnership that we did last year. We're hoping to host some sort of drug prevention workshop online. The details aren't solidified yet, but that's to be announced, and we hope that you guys will check it out when time comes. We're also working on videos, the video project to sort of showcase the city of San Ramon and hopefully get it posted on the city's YouTube channel as well. And what Commissioner Osland already talked about was the partnership with the Leave No Trace organization, which is a student-led organization from a student at Cal High. And we plan on working with them to organize trail cleanup events in San Ramon. And they're working with the Parks Department to identify the especially affected trails. Apparently the trash on these trails has actually increased over COVID because there's a lot of PPE on the trails and people have been going out a lot more. So that's something that we're looking forward to, but that's about it.
Very good, thank you. Well, on my report is I have from the Planning Commission, kind of goes along with what Heidi had on the RENA documents, so that they were talking about that. That now they the reports actually lag behind for 21, 22, so they're still in the getting things for late 2022 that, and then they'll be adopted by the end of 2022, as Heidi said, that they go into a new era like that. So they were discussing that, and they were discussing the housing of low income housing and very low income housing. And so we're in this city are above average in the above moderate income housing. So that was all that was discussed in that, and detailed on the RENA report, that you could also go on their February 21st meeting and learn all about it too, which is interesting. But today I started at 4 o'clock and excused myself at 6:30 from the EDAC committee meeting. It was quite interesting, and I really learned a lot about our city, about how income comes, how expenses are, and how everything works, and what makes where the tax money comes from and where the expenses are. I mean, Stephen did a wonderful job. So if you have a chance, the meeting for today at EDAC is very interesting of his presentation. There is just no way I can give you that in 2 minutes when I was there 3 hours almost. Sales tax revenue, how he told how that was generated, and how the changes in the specifics in San Ramon are done. The property tax we're getting about taxes that we get in the city of San Ramon are 40% from property taxes, and sales tax brings us in from 18 to 20% each year. And this year, of course, many things were down, but the property tax remained the same or a little bit more, and sales tax were positive also. So that was good. He explained what businesses brought in a lot of sales tax. There was a lot of those, but I'll just Koenig Marketing is in the Bishop Ranch, and they were high on the list for bringing in the most sales tax. They plan, they're a marketing group, and they plan for all types of services that bring in money to the city. And another one was Chevron, CVS, and Devil Mountain Nursery, Heller Jewelers, Home Depot, and In-N-Out Burgers. Those were some of the high retails that brought in sales tax. And I thought that was interesting, that there was quite a variety here. There were some more, but those I thought would be most interesting for everybody. We are losing sales tax, of course, to Amazon, and there is the taxes now that come from Amazon for people purchasing in San Ramon goes into a big pot for the county of Contra Costa. And then they divvy it out according to about how much sales tax you have. And San Ramon only gets about 6% from that. So they're thinking of changing how that works or whatever, but he said that is a political process. So one of the main reasons that a lot of cities around us have higher sales, taxes, because like Dublin has many car sales, Walnut Creek has car sales and bigger shopping areas. And of course, he explained that if he was ever going to do something in San Ramon, that he would have started San Ramon by having the businesses along 680 instead of inland, where you can't see them right from the freeway. And of course, the most that brings in is auto sales, which bring in millions of dollars. So that we don't have. We have one little place that sells cars. Bollinger Canyon handles more traffic in San Ramon than traffic on Treat Boulevard and Ignacio Valley and Walnut Creek. That was really eye-opening to think. I know there's a lot of traffic there, but that's really something. And those little things that they have for green going. I mean, that's great because it seems though when you really want to go, I mean, it's a lifesaver that you're not, everybody's cutting in and out. So I think that's wonderful that they came up with that, and they should have had a reward. And there's just a lots of, he did make a comparison on Tri-Valley sales tax in 2019. San Ramon had 10 million and Dublin had 26 million. Pleasanton had 22 million and Livermore had 36 million. So you can see we're short on the sales tax in for the Tri-Valley cities, and Danville was lower than San Ramon. So those are just some of the highlights. I mean, it was so interesting how he detailed in each area that you learned so much from it, that it was really a good presentation. One of the best I've seen from the EDAC committee, and at 6:30 they were still going, and I asked to be excused, but only the planning commission had to report next. But anyway, that was my learning ability. I'm sure I learned more than I'm sharing with you, but it's just a synopsis of what they covered. But it was interesting. I encourage you to listen to that EDAC meeting. So that is all. Does anyone else have any commission member items that you'd like to share?
I just would like to again welcome Heidi. I've had the pleasure of working with her in the PTA, and as you can, she's already showing her colors, and she is bright and invested, and I'm really, aside from the name, you know, she's got that going for her, but I'm excited for the value that she's going to add to this group, as each of you do, and so I just want to say welcome, and I'm glad you're here.
And we're very glad you're here, and I'm sure that Christy has given you your book for this, and I think Christy, have you had did you get that out, what committees and things that she will be on, Heidi will be?
Everyone can expect that new, Carol had updated the liaison list, so everyone can expect to get an email with an updated liaison list. And Heidi, you've been appointed to some committees.
Yes, you will be having a report next month, so I'm sorry that you maybe felt left out tonight, but you'll just be getting your feet wet, so you'll have some duties to do, so we'll put you to work, so don't worry. So but we are pleased to have you with us, and I hope I would want to apologize for the amendments and everything to that we had to go through tonight, so I'll do my best to improve, but I had never had that decision done before, but that's okay. You learn something all the time. The only thing I'd like to share is, as you all know, I'm on the San Ramon Historic Foundation, and we did have our crab pickup event on January 27th. Let me tell you, it's as much work as hosting the whole thing when you can sit down, because you have to be so precise. But it was, I think, rewarding. The crab was superb. I think Kathy can attest to that. It was very good. We thank Giannis for helping us with the pasta, and Cali Crabs in San Ramon with the crab, which was purchased right from the wharf, which was really, really fresh. So in all, we made $5,200. So I think that was a great thing for doing that, for, not having to be able to do the whole event. So it's a lot of work, but you can make some money for your projects that you're going to do. So anyway,
Commissioner Roberts has his hand up.
I'll just say one last thing, and definitely welcome Commissioner Ellicott-Pesek for sure. And I just also want to say thanks to all of the residents who stepped up to apply for the various committees, and also thanks to my fellow commissioners who participated in the interviews. It's a very difficult process. One of the hardest things that we do is to interview these residents who were all fantastic, by the way, and all qualified. And I just encourage residents to continue doing that because our committees and commissions are really important in this community. So
that was true. I was going to say that it was interesting that Commissioner Roberts and Heidi Heisington-Lee, that we all kind of judged the same this year, and we were really pleased that we came out with not a lopsided. We have some, a good number from Cal High, a number from Darty. We have Corey Lane. We have Windermere Ranch and Iron Horse that we have from this year. And so we do have more girls than boys, but it's not real lopsided.
For teen council.
For teen council. So we
Yeah.
really feel good about that. And I think Commissioner Ramesh, you'll feel good about the people that have applied, and we've tried to be, I think they're excellent. So you have those people have to interview them, have a real tough job ahead of you. So we'll say that. But if we have no further comments, I'd like to thank each one of you for participating and making decisions that we had to make this evening. And I hope that you have the rest of the evening. And so I'll say the meeting is adjourned.